ready.
Let's go ahead and kick off the workshop. Are we rolling?
We are rolling.
Very good. We need to take roll.
We usually for the regular meeting, up to you.
Regular meeting's good.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to turn it over to AJ here in just a minute, but I'll give some opening remarks. As you're all aware, we've been doing some pretty significant reinvestment in our drinking water infrastructure over the last several years. For quite a while, there was a council oversight committee that was sort of involved in, some of the behind the scenes, bigger picture conversations we were having. We've since discontinued that oversight committee meeting, and the projects are all moving into the active construction phase, or a few that are wrapping up. Frankly, you've seen a couple contracts go before you in the last couple of weeks for like the revenue reservoir, for example. You'll see another contract later this evening for work on Alder Creek. But we wanted to bring back a work session topic to kind of share just an overall status update of the water program, some key accomplishments we've had, some good news regarding the overall budget to actuals for the projects that we are moving forward with. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to AJ to kind of run through his presentation, and we'll open up questions.
Okay, so for all of you that have had a recent update, which is basically all of you, a lot of this is going to be repetitive. I figured with public being able to watch this one that we would include as much information as possible. But I'd just like to run through and talk about Alder Creek and then talk about Bull Run and just kind of the program as a whole and let you know what's new, what's exciting. And as far as this goes, feel free to interrupt anytime with questions and we'll just work our way through this. Okay. Start on the agenda slide there. And then next one. All right, so for those of you that don't know, and I believe we've all been there, Alder Creek is located on Highway 26, about 7 miles east of town. It's noted on our little presentation here with the pin in place, and the tax lot itself is highlighted in white there.
Has everyone been to Alder Creek now?
Oh, we'll have to fix that.
You have not. Okay, we will, outside of this meeting, work on getting you all up there for a site visit.
Bring your boots.
Yeah, a drier day is definitely preferred for that site, and then depending on how deep you want to go into the forest, appropriate footwear is certainly
Yeah, are you
important.
asking for a trip to the springs, the headwaters, or just to the treatment plant?
Well, we could do both. I mean, we've done a trip to the springs before for some of you. but
Less boots for the treatment plant.
less
Yep.
boost for the treatment plant. But we'll work on getting that scheduled for those.
You want to go
people.
outside?
Is it you that got your feet wet?
No.
One of you
I know I
stepped
did.
right in the creek.
I
That
like
was
basically
you.
fell with it.
Not more than proper shoes.
Sorry.
No worries. So the need for our upgrade for the Alder Creek water treatment plant is the plant that is in place there is in rough condition. It is under capacity for our future needs. And it is basically completely unredundant as it sits right now. We have 3 filters up there. For the majority of the recent past, only one of them has been operational, meaning that when we need water, it has to run almost all the time, which is a high risk situation for our main source of drinking water. Recently, we've put a lot of work into getting those first 2 filters up and running. They are fully functional now, and there's just minor steps required to get them into an automated mode, which is very important because as we do this work at the treatment plant, we're going to have to remove the old workhorse that's been keeping our beaks wet, I don't know, for the last few years and run just off these filters 1 and 2.
So just. So we had 3 filters up there.
Mhm.
One of them is twice as big as the other 2.
Correct.
Individually. So the 2 are equal in capacity to the one that we've been running.
That is correct, yes. If we go to the next slide here, we have a rough sketch, well, not a rough sketch, this is a design set of what our future water treatment plant will look like. The gray building, which is building B here, which is on kind of the top left corner of this drawing, is the existing water treatment plant. Off to the right-hand side there in gray and what appears to be purple on the screen is our existing pond. There will be rebuilt into 2 separate ponds and lined as part of this project. And then the meat of this operation will be our new membrane filters, which the council has pre-purchased almost 2 years ago at this point. Those will be delivered in June. We already had January. These will sit out in this bottom left corner of the site here. They will have their own full barn type covered structure. They are completely self-contained. Sitting next to them will be a new pump station, new mixing tank, and a new generator. The reason we are removing the filter from the existing building is that the majority of our chemical storage and handling will be inside of that building and piped over to the new filters. This system will have more capacity, complete redundancy. Will be fully automated when it's in place. We intend to upgrade the booster station. As everything sits now, we can only get so much water via gravity from the creek because although it seems like there's a lot of up and down in between the two sites, there is not a lot of fall from our intake at the creek to our water treatment plant. So partway along our intake line, we have a booster station that also is in desperate need of rehab. So that'll be new pumps, and we're going to move all the electrical outside of the booster station, which is basically a giant manhole as it sits currently, so that it is not at risk of flooding or anything along those lines. The contract's written so that we have minimal disruption to our service. So that means only certain times that the few times that the existing water supply will need to be shut down to get this contract complete. There are certain times when those are available, which are low demand water times, which allows us better operational capacity as we work through there. And then going along with this project to make use of the capacity that we are building at the treatment plant, there are upgrades to our Sandercock Reservoir, our Terra Fern Reservoir and Pump Station, and some upgrades to Brownell Springs, which are not directly related to this capacity, but Brownell Springs does need upgrade as well. Next slide. So as I mentioned, our new filters will be on site in June. Our land use is approved. Clackamas County was very easy to deal with on that. We had 5 bidders for this project, and the project went to McClure & Sons Incorporated. Their bid was just over $11.5 million. Our engineer's estimate was just over $14 million, so we feel that's a pretty good bid there. The range of the bidders showed that this was not extremely low. It was a nice, well-spread group of bidders for this project as well. Along the lines of things that council has previously approved, we had some long lead time items that during recent turmoil, we had no idea how long they would actually take to get on site. Our estimates for putting them on the critical path. Council approved purchase of those pieces of electrical equipment to keep us online, and they will show up as expected on time and ready to go for us. And with that, is there any other direct Alder Creek questions while we're on these slides? Mayor Walker?
Yeah, so the estimate that was 14 something million
Mhm.
versus the 11.5 that came in at, how does how does that fit into all, there's additional projects that we've already bid out, right? For the things that already arrived, like you were saying. So, can you just kind of give us the total cost for Alder Creek? Is this the last purchase for, big purchase for Alder Creek, and what's that total?
This is effectively the last piece of Alder Creek. We will have Brownell Springs bid separately, whether that goes to our on-call contractors that we have currently or bids out for competitive bid is yet to be determined based on some other wastewater work and those contracts.
What was that thing you said? Just what was going to be bid out?
Brownell Springs is
Oh,
not
got it.
included in this bid. It wasn't part of this.
Okay, was that the 228,000?
We were holding 275 for
Okay,
it currently,
alright.
but yes, roughly that same amount.
Okay, so not huge amounts, but yeah.
I apologize because I don't think I have all my spreadsheets open here. Our Alder Creek total, this one's mine, with the 11 million. program total is sitting roughly over 21.5 million
For the whole,
for Alder Creek
For Alder
entirely, and
Creek.
that's including all design, all these aspects, Brownell Springs and everything.
thank you.
Anything else on Alder Creek? Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, which will take us to the Bull Run project. I think I said this last time I talked to everybody, but there's not much to see here in this picture, unfortunately, because the screen is a little bit too small. That little yellow line is the pipeline that we are currently building from Hudson Road up to Proctor on Bluff Road. And then the pin up at the top end of the screen is the rough location of where our pump station will sit on the Portland filtration site. You can go to the next slide here. So the reason that this project is necessary is, as you all know, we have our bilateral compliance agreement, meaning that all of our water sources must be filtered by September of 27. Our Bull Run source with Portland is currently unfiltered. That's why this big filtration facility is being built, and we need to get a straw into their tank there effectively. So this design involves, currently has become a three-piece design. I am jumping ahead on the slide. So you want to go to the next one? Sure. Okay. So this project, in the interest of time, has become a three-piece design. There are three very different aspects of the project. One is the transmission main, which we are building currently. Another one is the pump station itself, which will sit on the filtration site and pump water up to our existing revenue reservoir. And then the third piece is our dechloramination site, which is basically the disinfectant that we use in our water, free chlorine. The disinfectant that Portland will be using in their water is chloramines, which is chlorine with ammonium in it, basically. Those things do not mix in a water system. One of them offsets the other, basically, and you end up with disinfected water. So we determined that the best course of action, instead of converting our entire system to chloramines to match our minimal use water source, you are using breakpoint dechloramination to remove the chloramines at the revenue site and then chlorinate our water so it matches our existing water that we have. And where we're sitting right now, we'll be on our next slide, sorry. I forgot I'm not in control. So as we're sitting right now, our transmission main bid came in at 2.6 million. Our engineer's estimate for that was 3.8 million. Spent to date is just over 600,000, just shy of $700,000. The pipeline construction itself will conclude in late March, and we're looking to pave everything back in the next available
Well, you
paving
you
window.
beat me to my question. So what's there is temporary, the paving that's patched back.
Pardon?
The patched back paving is temporary. We're gonna pave over the whole thing.
Yep, that's completely temporary. We were paving that entire, I call it the southbound lane because we're generally south in that area
Makes
there.
me feel like I'm in Portland driving on it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. And just for the council here, the options for a project like this are we can do much more substantial temporary paving, but it creates a project that lasts almost twice as long because our contractor's spending a lot of time cutting, paving, and then we've spent a bunch of money on asphalt that we're about to tear up and grind out and repave on top of anyway. So the reason that this form of temporary paving was used for this project was saving time and money and getting out of everybody's hair as soon as possible. All right, so the next factor that we have here is our dechloramination site, which was a contract that council awarded to R.L. Reimers. Our engineer's estimate was 1.4 million. Our bid came in at 1.3 million, and work will start on that in the very near future. Our kickoff meeting is being scheduled as we speak. And then finally, our pump station itself, which you can see in our nice rendering here. is currently with Multnomah County for land use decision. The land use decision is expected by August of this year. At that point, we'll be able to start construction. That project, the pump station itself actually is slightly a two-component project. Our intent when we started this whole ordeal was that all the underground work below this pump station, it's approximately 40 feet down from surface grade to where we actually drink water from with our pumps. That was going to be completed by Portland's contractors to avoid issues with coordination and everything and take advantage of the fact that there is a very large hole there on site currently. Likely due to the delays from the land use issues that Portland has had, the bids we got back for that were over double what we expected to see, which means that we've had to pull this back and we're going to be bidding the underground work ourselves as part of this project. Right now, we are confirming, making sure we've got everything in place, all the boxes checked, I's and T's dotted and crossed respectively for that portion of work to make sure that we have everything in place so that we can get that out to bid as soon as possible. Our current estimate is just under 5 million for the construction, but considering the fact that we are working in the middle of a once in a lifetime project, we can't say for sure what factor that will have on bids because there is a lot of coordination required to make this all come together.
AJ, can you clarify where the pump station is located?
The pump
By
station,
Proctor or?
it's right up on Carpenter. So it's right on the north end of the filtration facility. Actually, you can see in this rendering here that loopy portion with the island in the middle of asphalt there
Uh-huh.
is the entryway driveway for the Portland facility. So our driveway is right off of theirs, which will come off Carpenter Lane.
So I'm just trying to figure out, we went with our pipeline went from Petrel or Hudson Road to Proctor.
Mhm.
And then somehow there was already line going to their plant.
As part of their project, Portland is installing the line from our pump station to our existing line that'll be sitting there waiting to connect to.
And they're paying for that.
Yep.
But they're not, I mean, it could be delayed because of what they're facing.
Right, the pump station itself is the critical path for all this because we are gonna have to construct that as Portland's finished up with their filtration facility. So the water line will be in place, our dechlorination will be in place. The last step is actually being able to move that water from where it is to where we need it, and that's going to be constructed basically last of this project. So the fun piece of news here is Portland has requested a 24-month extension on their bilateral compliance agreement due to the land use issues. That would move that September 27 date to September 29, which is very beneficial for us. We have not submitted our request for an extension yet. We are trying to figure out exactly if we are trying to determine if we can get things done by September of 29, or if with this coordination and the delays, we will have to actually push out further than that.
Whether we can get it done by our stuff by 29?
That's correct, yes.
Why
Explain.
would we have trouble?
I
It,
thought we
it,
were hitting 2027
Yeah.
when this bullet came out.
it should be no issue at all. I'm not that worried about it, but we need to see what coordination is going to look like to get our underground stuff installed so that we can throw our pump station up on the ground. And that's all dependent on a
So it's
schedule.
Portland's delays that make you
That's correct.
go from 27
Yeah.
to 29.
Our coordination is based on a schedule that we don't have control over and is still. It's about a year on at this point, and it's still kind of in flux on the Portland side of things after that delay.
But we have to go to DEQ and ask for an extension instead of, since it's their
Yeah.
schedule,
So-
you know.
We have
signed
to,
it too.
It's OHA, right?
OHA, yes. So formally, we have to request that extension as well. But Portland's extension will equate to our extension because our project can't be completed before theirs is done.
If they
The
get
o-
it,
the
they
o-
get it, probably.
Right, that's the intent. The only question that we have at this point is whether or not we would actually need any time on top of that. as I said, I don't see that being an issue, but we need to make sure before we
Do we,
submit
I
our
mean-
request.
well, Portland, what do we know about Portland getting this extension, or what is their plan if they don't, or?
Plan, if they don't, is, as far as I understand it, is that they will go to groundwater in the meantime, until this is completed.
And what's our plan?
Our plan is that we will not use Portland water.
Summertime
So
curtailment. stuff.
summertime curtailment, we're fine for the majority of the year. Summertime curtailment, some extra coordination to get water to Skyview. You know, in my time here at Sandy, we've had multiple situations where we've been without Portland water for over 2 months. It's not an unmanageable thing. The only difficulty will be that summertime curtailment starting summer of 2028.
So the good news is that Alder Creek rehabilitation, for lack of a better term, will be completed by then.
Mhm.
So we'll have our maximum capacity that we can be getting out of Alder Creek with that new infrastructure that's there.
But we would be one bad fire away,
That's correct, yes.
Will the Brownell Springs projects be done?
The Brownell Springs project will be done. It doesn't increase our capacity in any way. It just makes the system considerably more efficient compared to what's out there now. It's, for the most part, it is changing the operation of the Brownell Springs, and I should have brought a graphic for you guys. We're changing the operation of how Brownell Springs chlorinates the water. And that's pretty much it. The rest is just minor process improvements.
And I forget the numbers, but Brownell Springs is a small percentage compared to Alder Creek, right?
It is for winter time when we can use our full water right at Brownell Springs. It produces a lot of our water because Yeah.
It's 35% is what.
in
staff
in the
members-
winter,
Shock.
yes.
I have
So
to admit that was
summer-
right.
In the summer, it's almost negligible. We are currently
In our critical period, it won't help.
the amount that we actually use in the summer is being determined currently. We have, as part of the agreement that got us the access to Brownell Springs, the users that were already using Brownell Springs as their water source have connections and unlimited water use for perpetuity, correct? We, this last year, very recently, actually have added meters onto their connections. So they're not being charged anyway, but we can actually quantify those connections. So after this next summer, we'll know how much water of Brownell Springs is actually making it into our water system confirmed.
I'd say the other, maybe this is my rose-colored glasses on here, but Portland Water Bureau is asking for 24 months because they think they need less time than that, right? They're not asking for 24 months and then going back again and asking for more time. That they're planning for the worst case scenario. So I would assume that that's probably like really a 12-month extension and then a 12-month buffer for all the finished work and the final thing. So 24 months is like the worst case scenario, right? Maybe again, rose-colored glasses, maybe they're done. And it's just a 24-month extension and we're able to construct our facility in that same timeline. And so we're not really, at that exposure level of only having one primary water source for an extended period of time. So 24 months sounds like a really long extension. I'm not arguing with that. It is a long extension, but I think the actual implication of that is probably a much shorter period of construction time that they need. They're just hedging their bets and trying not to go back out for a second or third extension.
If I may, the concern I have with the extension is obviously we're putting a lot of capital assets in place that won't be used for some period of time, potentially an extra 2 years on top of that period of time already. So conceivably, we could have pumps and other things that are 3 years old being fired up for the first time, where those contracts that we put into place probably had warranties and things like that that now have expired. So I would like to make sure that you're watching our financial risk associated with bringing back, remobilizing contractors and things like that for the startup of this delay.
Yes. Excuse me. And the main place where that will be applicable is going to be that dechlorination site at Revenue. That'll be built early. It is not a whole new pump station or anything like that. We will have to bring somebody back, but the startup is considerably less involved than it would be for like a Bull Run pump station.
AJ, just to be clear, because I didn't realize this is, but there's a pipe that goes from the Bull Run and brings water to Revenue. Just one way, right? And then once it's dechlorinated, whatever that word, then it goes out to our water line down Bluff, right? It goes the other way and feeds Bluff Road, right?
So as things sit right now, that transmission main goes in, goes out. The majority of the water goes through our pump station into the rest of our system, connecting right there at Revenue. But it has the capability of flowing back, and that's how Skyview gets their water currently.
Through a different set of lines.
But didn't,
Skyview is served off of our transmission main.
oh, so that's right, it's treated.
It's treated coming from Bull Run currently.
That's right, that's right.
It's not filtered, but it is disinfected.
Okay, but my question
So-
is, knowing where I live on Bluff,
Mm.
am I gonna be getting that treated water from Bull Run or am
Your
I?
water's coming from a separate system. It's just the Skyview customers that are in that different situation. We've looked at that extensively to figure out what coordination is required because there will be an amount of mixed water in the transmission main between here and Skyview. It takes a long time to get that water from under normal use from our site to their site. And we've got Skyview's buy off on all this and everything as well, but the only offshoot situation would be that actual fire in the Bull Run site where we are providing water to put out a fire at the Bull Run filtration facility. That would bring enough water back where it's a risk. We're working on ways for notifying Skyview of this. They do have water storage on site too, so it's not like they need to shut off and they're without water for a period of time.
So for all this trouble we're going to Skyview, they have the lowest rates of anybody, including all of us. So
It-
are we capturing the true cost of providing them water? I get it that they treat it themselves, is that right?
They have the capability to, yes.
Oh, but they don't because we do?
Effectively, the water that we're getting currently from Bull Run is very, very high in chlorine residual because they need to get it all the way through Portland with that chlorine.
Right.
So right now, there's not much that they need to do. Going forward, it's on them for switching to chloramines and what all that requires. So
But we're not doing that. They're doing that.
they're doing
Okay.
that, yeah.
I just don't want to be subsidizing,
Right.
folks with cheaper water rates than anybody in San.
The only addition that we'll have to our water operations regarding the Skyview service will be basically SOPs to make sure that we notify them if there's some reason that water's coming back their way that they should be concerned about. So then, our next slides are summary and then we can just chat.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Last thing on the 24-month delay.
Mhm.
Are there expenses that we can, or contracts that we can push out or should push out because of the delay?
The only thing that we could push out would be the work at Revenue. I'd have to check with legal on this, and I'm not gonna put Josh on the spot right now. I don't know how long we could extend that out without starting work, without rebidding the project entirely and risking much higher bids.
Okay,
You
I'm
all,
suggesting it, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
yeah, you all approved that contract 4 weeks ago, and then I
4 or 6.
think, 2 weeks ago, we got word that Portland was
Yeah, I was gonna say.
putting their
Mhm.
extension
They
in,
just
so
changed.
Yeah.
this has been a recent development from the city of Portland side, or Portland Water Bureau side of things.
And we don't know for sure that they will get an extension or what that extension will be.
Right.
All we know is that the request has been formally made at this point. So,
The delays that they've experienced with the land use stuff, I think if I remember what I read correctly, it was somewhere in like the $400 million range or something. I mean, it's a huge amount of money that they've been impacted by these land use delays. So I assume that Portland has every intention of moving as quickly as humanly possible to pick up that lost ground and avoid additional carrying costs in the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars. Can't guarantee that, but the reasonable side of me says they have every interest in it and reason to move as quickly as possible now that they have the green light.
All right, so the summary of our water program currently is 3 out of the 4 major components of this have been bid. Our early procurement's all been completed. At this time, as we're sitting right now, budgeting for what we hope is the worst case scenario for the Bull Run pump station itself. We are sitting 6 million below what we had projected, which is very good.
And that's just for the Bull Run section. We also have,
That's for everything but the Bull Run. Bull Run's sitting at a full amount currently.
oh,
Everything else that's bid is
So
bringing us
6 million of a total budget, which was
60.
so not bad, 10%, nice.
Is that with the contingency still?
There's still some contingencies in there, yes. You know, we can reduce them, but we can't really release them until we get through some of these projects or the light at the end of the tunnel shows.
So the 6 million is real because that's right
That's,
off the bid versus.
that's correct. The only thing that will throw that off is if Bull Run comes in considerably more expensive.
Or we discover something bad, cultural
Yeah.
artifacts or.
Yes, it's the opposite of striking oil, yeah.
the numbers were 40 and 30 totaling 70.
Mhm.
And then you just said 60.
So for a rate project, do you wanna?
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
the original program, sorry. The original program budget, as you just mentioned, was 30 and 40 for a total of 70 million. We've gone back and forth with FCS and done some revisions and tried to capture the true cost savings that we've already that have already materialized, which is the $6 million that AJ is referencing. And determined that the overall project budget now can be shaved down to about 60, recognizing that we've seen 6 million in savings and there's probably additional savings that will be recognized just given where the projects have come in compared to budget. So
So it would be better to compare the 6 million to 70.
we should probably compare it to 70.
Okay.
So we've got a $60 million project sort of on the books now, including those contingencies that you asked about, Counselor Mayton. We have revised the rate model, which you'll see, probably should have put it in this PowerPoint presentation or slide deck, but it's included in the staff report for the upcoming meeting that we're having here in the next half hour. But we were trying to articulate this well. So really, we have a true new program budget of 60 million that includes contingencies still. We have a revised rate model that has a $55 million total construction project built into it. So trying to be a little more, we don't want to increase rates unnecessarily, right? So we're recognizing that there's some contingency that we are hopeful that we won't have to use, kind of hedging our bets a little bit on backing into a more realistic number. So still holding from a funding standpoint and potential need 60 million, but a rate model that's based on 55 million. Those are the numbers that you'll see in the staff report later this evening, but essentially that.
It's not in this one?
Or was it in this
I think
one?
it's in this one.
It's in the staff report, but not in the
You were
presentation.
showing almost if I saw it right, it was like a 4% reduction in rate projection.
Yes,
Here it is.
sorry, we've got competing
There you go.
staff reports this evening. So thanks, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, that's.
In 2020, late 2024, the last time we brought water rates to the council, this top table is what we were projecting, and that was based on that $70 million total project cost. This second table now is based on that $55 million project.
Is that 2026 number real though?
That's what we're recommending the next. If we were to have a rate conversation today of what should we set the rates to, it would be an immediate 7%
Okay.
rate increase, yeah.
I like single digits over double.
This is still with the caveat that that $5 million that we don't have built into this revised rate model, right? So we've got 60 million potential, we've got a budget for 55. I'm adamant, I shouldn't say that. I'm very hopeful that we will be in the $55 million range. But I would just caution that, if the Bull Run project comes in substantially higher than budget because of external factors, then we'd have to relook at those 7s and maybe they're a couple of years of 8s or 9s, but
But it would be somewhere between the two.
it would be somewhere between the two. I think the takeaway here is that, you know, we budgeted a healthy budget with healthy contingencies and made a financial plan for that as we've moved forward with those projects. The actual costs have come in lower, and we're seeing the actual materialization of what those high-end budgeting numbers and actual project costs come in at. So I like, if we could just focus on just those two tables, I love that, right? We've done good work, we've had good bids come in, and the end result is a lower future rate increase for all the ratepayers.
I think we're seeing a more aggressive bidding world with contractors looking for work as opposed to turning it away.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
Other
the
questions?
economy is coming to our benefit now.
Definitely.
Other question? So these rates that you just mentioned, you know, when you look at the CIP list and schedule from the 2022 amended plan for the water, you know, that had a bunch of projects totaling in years 1 through 5, like 85 million, but of course, I think that's, like you said, come down. But there's also projects in years 6 through 10 and 11 through 20, and all those kind of total, you know, another 80-something million. So I have kind of two questions. Are the increased rates that we've put in that you're showing us, you know, 7% across the board, whatever, do those include the cost for these out-year projects? And the second question is, you know, can any of these out-year projects be deleted or mitigated or downsized or something else because we've done so much with the stuff that we spent on this phase? And you may not know the answer to that yet, but
I can take the first part of that.
Okay.
Question, Mayor, and I'll defer to AJ on the second half. The first half of your question is there are additional CIP projects reflected in this rate model, but they are not reflected as costs incurred until like 2035, 2036, 2037, and the rates that we're presenting go through 2034. So there is probably some tweaking on those like 2032, 2033, 2034 that could come down because we need to increase rates a little bit before we incur a capital project, right? So we're gonna go out and borrow money. We have to show that we can make the debt service payments on that. So there is some flexibility probably in those last 3 years or so on this table. If we were to decide to postpone or delay any of those other storage capacity enhancements and things like that. But the near term, the next 4 or 5 years, as we're making these last bits of improvement, those are reflective of really just the debt that we have currently incurred and the next, couple millions of dollars of projects that we know are coming up. So, $200,000 for Brownell, for example, and things like that, where we need some cash on hand. I don't really want to go, do a $200,000 loan to do a project that small when we can cash fund those types of things. So
and just to
concise.
clarify for you guys, what he's referring to is there's like a 5 million gallon additional storage, half of it in 6 through 10 years and half of it in 2033 to 2042. And each phase of it is over 17 million. So that's like 35 million additional projects that are on very much out years. And, just whether or not we're going to need that or it's going to cost that much or, there's just a lot of additional future stuff. And I just kind of am mindful of how those kind of large numbers in the future can inflate what we're paying now to make sure we have enough to pay it, into the future. It's, double-edged sword. You don't want to kick the can down the road and not collect it, but on the other hand, I just want to kind of make sure that we're going forward with a not too ambitious of a plan, but also, not something that's, going to continue to just put us in the poorhouse.
So as part of the efforts in our program, we are working on amending the master plan to reflect all the work that we're doing currently. I mean, we at the end of this, we'll have overhauled all of our water production effectively. As part of that, and I haven't even scratched the surface on it yet, but as part of that, updating the CIP table will be a portion of that, and maybe making the additional storage, instead of looking at it as we need 5 million gallons for the future, making it a little more granular will help with future rate predictions if we can separate that out into a few smaller projects with this effort. I don't know if we will be able to get to that point in the very near future here, but that is one of the goals that we have.
Future. Okay, thank you. Good job. Lots of stuff got done on water.
We're getting there, guys. We're close.
I think water is, a real success story despite the potential delay with the city of Portland. It wasn't that long ago when water really wasn't even on our radar. And then we did a master plan and identified issues and hit the ground running and have overhauled, many components of that infrastructure and have a plan of implementation for the next set of work that needs to happen. And I love a good project that comes in under budget and on time. So we've seen that for a good portion of the work. And that's all it's what we want to see, right? We want to build a budget with a conservative estimate that is reflective of contingencies, put it out to bid, see multiple bids that are evenly distributed. We hate when there's 5 bids and 4 of them are all relatively close, and you get this one low ball because that indicates that we're going to have a bunch of change orders and a problem on our hands right away. So having these bids that have come in that have, a couple on the lower end, a couple here, it means that we've got good construction estimators that are working on those projects, getting good results when we're putting them out to bid. We've had good relationships with the contractors that you've been working with. So overall, just a really positive story on the water side.
And it also reflects our consultants have been putting together very good plan sets that are easy for these companies to bid. There's not a lot of mystery when they look through them.
What are you seeing in terms of change orders coming out? Because that's also another measure of your quality of your design work, right?
Yep. On the water side, we don't have enough going on to really have a big picture built. The transmission main change orders have been very minimal. One of them being related to a unmarked water service that nobody knew existed, and it was 2,000 feet long. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Not 2,000 feet we had to repair though. It was
No,
just one,
no.
one spot.
Yeah, did that intake pipe inspection get done yet? Or is that scheduled for next summer?
That'll be scheduled for next summer. We had some back and forth with that's actually a very good question. We had some conversations with the inspector, the company doing the inspection called Kenwave. The application that we're using does not perfectly line up with their specs. So we had to spend some time confirming that what we would get out of this inspection would actually be beneficial to us. Just, we don't have enough head on the water there. There's not enough water pressure built up, and there's a few spots where it's just not moving terribly fast, that we needed to make sure that this was the right choice for us, that we weren't sending money down the pipe and not getting much out of it. But everything's been confirmed. We're working on setting up contract documents and setting up a contract with the inspector. So. Anything else, guys?
I was just gonna point out on that what you call the CIP summary,
Project looks.
for with those out years, just something for us to file with on council is, it looks like if the numbers hold when we redo the SDC logic later, that 45% of that would be eligible to collect through SDCs.
Sure they will have.
I just pointed out, that's all.
Thank you very much, AJ.
Thank you.
So thank you all.
AJ, good job.
See you shortly.
Come back at 7 o'clock. Let's get started.
Also,
Pledge of allegiance, everybody. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Uh, Let's do roll call, please.
Okay, Counselor Mayton,
Present.
Counselor Smallwood,
Excused.
okay, Counselor Sheldon,
Here.
Counselor Ramsayer,
Here.
Counselor Hanlon,
Here.
Counselor Hopkinson.
Here.
Mayor Walker.
Here. All right, tonight we have, the consent agenda, which has the draft meeting minutes from our last meeting and also, purchase authorization for the restrooms at Mining Park renovation. The new contract business we have is the contracting work for Alder Creek that we heard about earlier. A great, synopsis of our community survey results. And a little bit of a discussion on the Clackamas County TSP, that's transportation system planning that's being done. And then just a little discussion, short discussion on a possible bin list that we could start. And then reports from city manager and all that. So is there anything on here that anybody wants to change? Specifically the consent agenda, bring it forward?
Can we split the consent agenda into two parts because I wasn't here for the reading minutes, but I'd like to vote on the second piece.
Okay, sure. All right. Okay. Do we need a motion for that? No.
No, so would you like to consider the restroom separately? Is that how you'd like to
Yeah, is
handle it?
that what I'm understanding? Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, I'd have to abstain from both of them at
Right,
once.
yeah. Any other changes to the agenda? Nope, okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and have the public comment opportunities. Have any blue cards here, do I?
No, well, at least not that I received, and we didn't have any signups online, but.
Okay, all right. And so is there any response to previous comments?
Just briefly, Mayor, so we had three residents provide public testimony at the last meeting. The first was Art O'Leary, and we sort of had an interchange and answered some of his questions on the spot, on the spot. The other two public comments were Mr. and Mrs. Porter, who live across the street from John's Review Point. I provided all of you a brief update, I think in an email earlier, but just for the record, I met with staff and Mr. and Mrs. Porter the following morning out at their site. We walked the John's Roof location. We were able to identify a secondary site that is still certainly in front of their property because their property aligns with the viewpoint. But it is less of an impactful location from their, front rooms of their home. And so we did end up moving forward with that secondary location. It's about 25 feet north on Bluff. Still a great view of the mountain, still going to work perfectly well for the camera that we're installing. So all in all, I think it's a positive outcome for the property owner and for us getting that council goal across the finish line. The concrete pad, unrelated to public comment, but just as a brief update, since we're talking about this, the concrete pad is poured. We're working on getting the contractor back out to actually install the pole and the camera. Obviously, that concrete needed some time to cure. And then it's just been a little bit of a scheduling nightmare since then, but we are actively working on getting that project completed.
Okay. Well, we have an update from our government relations. Nellie, would you like to come up and give us the great news? Yuck, yuck.
I don't know if we want to preface it with that, but
Well, the expectation has been set now, so.
well, I wouldn't say I come as the bearer of the best news, but unfortunately, this session was a very challenging session. We knew that going into it, there was $77 million that were allocated towards capital construction only. And all of those projects ended up being primarily state projects. And so there were no cities that were actually individually allocated any money, unfortunately. We had a lot of things going for us. We had a lot of things going against us, but I think in the main scheme of things, we were very fortunate that we were able to get our name out there. I want to say again, thank you to Mayor Walker for representing Sandy and really like being front and forward and explaining our issues. And with the budgetary restrictions, we were just working against the machine. So great news. Yeah.
Any
Uh,
other updates on the gas bill? or
The,
any of
yeah,
that
the
stuff?
transportation bill actually, well, it's not the transportation bill that already passed, but, it was the referral and that passed today, that passed this afternoon. I think it was a 31-28 vote. It was a very, partisan vote.
Can you kind of clarify what passed? I'm not,
So
Yeah.
what happened is, the transportation, gosh, I should know this. It's like the $5 million transportation package that passed in the extended special session.
Billion.
Yes, Siri, yeah, wrong number. That ended up, it was the goal was to have it referred for the May ballot as opposed to the November ballot. And it effectively, it had already passed the Senate and it passed the House this afternoon.
so
So
it'll be on May ballot.
it will be on the May ballot, yes. So I
And the
mean,
prediction is that it gets shut down.
if I were a betting person,
We are, that's the game we play.
I would assume, yes, that's gonna be the case. The political side of all of that was they wanted, the goal was to not have it being during the general election where we've got a gubernatorial race that could be competitive, so. That was really the primary reason for trying to move it to May. And it was not without drama. To say the least, it's been a difficult session. I mean, we've got gun bills and a bunch of very controversial issues coming up, and 35 days is a lot for a legislature to handle. I will say the brand new Capitol is very beautiful. But
How much did that cost?
Uh,
a lot, and they're still not done, but yeah.
And one of the things that was on the agenda, I think it's still in play, I don't know, is the whole idea about the change to the ethics issues.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, all of that is still in process. I think it's moving in the right direction. I don't think you're talking about the serial
Yeah.
assessment meetings or the serial meetings. All of that is in process, and so hope to provide you with a better update soon, but things are moving forward with that, so.
It's a little disappointing to see the letters editorial from the chair of the OJEC committee coming out, and I mean, I would have thought as a government employee discussing a topic that is a government thing that she's in charge of to take a political stance on that seems
Unethical. Oh, sorry.
That was your outline.
seems a bit of a stretch. I just, yeah.
Yeah,
We, we can't do anything, I mean, we're so constrained and yet.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's been a really tough session, and it's been a very political session. I mean, it's no new news to anyone. I mean, look at the federal dynamics that we're going through and everything that's happening in the world right now. But it's been very political, and it's been a very tough session to negotiate because everyone is the feeling in the building is not exactly congenial. It's very, very cold.
Sorry.
But
Well, it was, what was interesting to me to read through the list today, what was, I could see getting kind of burned over some other city getting, the funding that we thought we should get or whatever, that's just the way that way things go. But what was surprising to me was that no cities got any money, and the only allocations were made to state government agencies and some higher education projects that, and again, 77 million isn't going to go that far, but it was a little bit surprising that if your big push is housing and things like that across the state, to give that much money to just projects that in and of themselves don't provide any housing, really, is it just, whereas all these other cities that were requesting money, even if we didn't get funded, other cities needed it to be able to kind of, buck up their infrastructure to be able to kind of provide more housing. So it was a little bit surprising that way. And I'm also curious about where was the League of Oregon Cities that are supposed to be, working on behalf of all the cities that they work, that no cities got funded at all. So we'll see, I guess.
I still have a lot of questions and I would like to follow up on this, but I will say there were things that were in motion prior to no cities getting money. And I don't know what that trigger was that changed that exactly yet. But I mean, we were on the precipice of it. Like we were so close. We did everything we could do. The problem is that something happened and I mean, I was on the phone with the co-chair of the subcommittee on capital construction, and he was negotiating what was going to be in that bill. And he left the meeting to have a conversation with me, and that still did not.
Didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it was about to go somewhere, but then there were politics involved after that,
And are
unfortunately,
those public meetings where they have those discussions?
no. No, they're very much behind closed doors and,
So we will, yeah.
but then, Republicans walked out like that afternoon. A few things that happened.
Sounds like too. Okay, well,
So I'm
disappointing, but thank you for carrying it as far as we could and getting. close.
And thank you for your support and for, generally, I do think that it was a step in the right direction to do what we did to try to at least keep our names, excuse me, on the list and know that like this is still a need that Sandy has. It's just wasn't the year.
Right, any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Someday we'll have a big bag of cash that gets right into this room.
Yeah, and I'll carry it in like Santa Claus and just be like, got this.
Check would be good too. either way.
Yeah.
Think it's one of the
Money
big
orders,
ones,
like
Get the
anything.
picture. All right, well, on the consent agenda, may I first have a motion to pass the draft meeting minutes on the consent agenda?
Make a motion, we accept the meeting minutes.
Second. I have a motion from Counselor Sheldon and a second from Counselor Hanley to pass the meeting minutes under the consent agenda. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion
Abstain.
passes. Oh, I've read one abstention, right?
Okay, that is.
Because Counselor Mayton wasn't here. Okay, the second item is the purchase authorization for $378,000, I think is, what's the term? I guess, yeah, the recommendation $334,483 for the purchase and installation of the restroom at Mining Park near Fantasy Forest. There's a suggested motion. So are we just passing the second half of the consent agenda and not naming this?
I think when I write it up, I'll put this as the first item of new business. Just to say, because it
Okay, all right.
makes more sense that way.
Okay, so may I have a motion for the, if anybody has that open, can make that motion for the toilets, park toilets?
I moved up, oh, go ahead, sorry. What?
Go ahead.
Was there discuss, were you want to discuss it? Or-
No.
Okay.
Is there any discussion?
I moved to authorize the city manager to execute a change order to add the restroom building kit and installation for the Mining Park renovation project in the amount of $334,483 for a total contract price not to exceed $735,457 as included in the meeting packet.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and just to clarify, that higher number is including the shelters that we already approved. Okay. All those in favor vote aye.
I
Opposed, vote nay. Motion passes. All right, second new business item is our Alder Creek Water Treatment Plant construction contract.
I'm going to spare you any opening remarks since we just talked a lot about water and turn it over to AJ.
Okay, so Alder Creek is our key water source. The need for this project is to replace dated, worn equipment at the Alder Creek site. This will allow us to maximize our water production from this site. In coordination with our upcoming Portland Water contract, which will become effective in the near future here, this will allow us to use as much water from Alder Creek on a daily basis and use as little from the Portland site on a daily basis. Currently, we have to purchase 500,000 gallons per day, whether we use it or not. We will no longer have that in the future. So the more water we can get out of Alder Creek, the better for the city of Sandy. Included in this project are some key improvements to maximize our use of the Alder Creek source, one of them being at the Terra Fern Reservoir and Pump Station, and the other being a very minor upgrade at Sandercock to allow water to flow properly throughout our system. The bid for this project came in at $11,532,851 from McClure & Sons. The engineer's estimate for this project was $14,149,000. And this is funded by a combination of the Special Public Works Fund and the the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Fund. With that, is there any further questions?
You have any questions?
When do we get to stop buying the mandatory water?
That is, I should have looked ahead of time. I want to say it's July of this year.
July of this year.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
We've stopped buying.
That's when the new Portland water contract comes into effect.
So we won't have the 500.
Before the treatment plant.
Yeah,
will
the
be-
contract,
Will be under the new contract.
yes, that's correct.
So we'll only be paying for what we use.
That's correct.
Fantastic.
Yep.
I thought that was gonna happen after ribbon was cut.
Is the metering and everything in place for that?
Pardon?
Is the metering and everything in place for that?
Yes, all the existing infrastructure will work for the new contract as it did for the old contract.
Cool conversation. We'll read this. I move to authorize the city manager to execute a construction contract for the Alder Creek Water Treatment Plant Upgrades Project with McClure & Sons, Inc. for a maximum total fee of $11,532,851.
I'll second.
Counselor Sheldon's made a motion and a second from Counselor Hokinson to approve the motion to fund the water treatment upgrades. All those in favor vote aye. Opposed, vote nay. Motion passes. Thank you, AJ.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Have a great night, guys.
You too.
Hi, Greg.
All right.
What a great job, that community survey. Yeah, I really enjoyed reading the
Oh,
summary.
I'm sorry, you want me to?
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. Just give me one.
So as you all will recall, we recently did a community survey. Greg took this up as part of his capstone project for his master's program. I'll let him share, obviously, all the results and key findings, but I think this was a meaningful first step to better identify what community feedback is and a measure, a first step of measurement going forward on where we are with respect to livability and meeting people's needs and being accessible and all those things. We see a lot of comments on Facebook, but it's hard to pinpoint what's a actual a necessary item that we need to improve on. Is it just one person that feels that way? Is it multiple people that feel that way? So I think this is really just a meaningful first step in engaging the community where they're at today, and we can use the information we gathered through this survey process in future surveys and in future outreach and in future goal setting and in future budget processes to really make sure that we're meeting the mark for all of our community members. Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and start the presentation there. We can just leave it it's fine leaving it like that too. That way I can actually see what's up ahead. Good evening, council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to try conducting a survey and coming up with results. I'm back here, I call them preliminary results because there's just a lot of information, and I think statistics can be bullied one way or another. And so I think it's good to offer the blank information before you kind of start diving in, comparing questions. And I'd like to see what the council wants to hear as well, because there was a good chunk of information to go through. As of today, the raw responses are available on the city website underneath the community page. So you can download the Excel spreadsheet that has everyone's responses for over 1,000 results and the write-in questions for each section as well. Obviously, I won't go over everything. I kind of go over categories in high level detail here tonight. I've also stared at numbers all day, so if my percentages are off by a couple, let me know. But also, if you find something that's glaring that I overlooked, please let me know so we can make sure we get it fixed. And with that, I think we'll jump in. So obviously, the survey was designed to pull levels of satisfaction and information that the community had for on city goals and initiatives. It did allow anyone to respond. For this interview, I have limited the responses to just inside city limits. So we had over 1,091 total responses and 797 of those are within city limits. We had a decent completion rate of about 77%, and my original goal of 15 minutes ended up being an average of 21 minutes. I think a lot of that is a result of writing questions. Some of them are longer than others. And with the amount of response that we got, we were able to come up with about a 98% confidence level, give or take 4%. Obviously, you can't exceed 100, and we received over 1,800 written in questions.
So, I mean, I know we probably can't tell, so, but, you know, could you theorize, sorry, I can't think of the word, like over 1,000 responses, and we have 4,500 homes in Sandy, so that's kind of like about 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, about
25%.
25% of our residents might have filled out this, or it could be, you know, 3 people in one house filling it out too. I don't know.
Yeah, and on the next slide, if you want to move forward, Jeff, there, I'll kind of show you the sources we collected them from. So it wasn't necessarily based on house. It was available for anyone to take it. So there could be multiple individuals within a house taking it simultaneously. And so I always kind of compared it to the population of Sandy. When I ran my sampling numbers, I used 13,000 as the baseline to get our level of confidence and how many responses we would need to get that level of confidence. And it matched up at that 797 for inside city limits. I will mention this is an error on my part, and something that's definitely in a lessons learned section. A neutral response is historically not necessarily a good response or borderline poor or bad. Sorry, unfavorable is probably the right word. And so we don't consider fair to be or neutral responses to be a positive response in this survey. So we're broken up often into bad, poor, unsatisfied, neutral, indifferent, and good or happy as such. And so my graphs all try to group those into those categories. And
I'm going to interrupt and defend this position a little bit, though. Many other community surveys, their middle option is favorable leaning. So your survey results, when you have that middle of the road person, gets captured into a positive response. And so you can easily say that 80 or 90% of people feel favorable or feel positive about something. Our middle of the road response is fair or indifferent, as Greg put it in those terms. And so it's not really positive or negative. I think from a personal standpoint, it's a more accurate representation of who really feels strongly that something is good, who really feels strongly something is bad, and who is kind of just, I'm good with it. And I think we can use that information. It's still meaningful information that we can use to make decisions going forward. You know, if most people are or feeling positive about something, probably don't have a lot to fix in that category. So I don't think that it's something good to point out, but I don't think it's a negative aspect of the survey results.
Yeah, I didn't mean it as in to throw it out and it was necessarily useless. It just makes it harder to compare against other cities that do display that or offer that. So when you look at another city, it might you might have wildly different numbers, and oftentimes if you start actually looking at it, it ends up being comparable. One other thing that is absent in this presentation and was in the staff report was I did not get around to comparing us on questions directly with other cities. I'd be happy to come back and compare that later. It was not within the amount of time frame that I had to complete that. Okay, we can move on to the next question or next slide. This is just a graph of you can just see how many comments there were. Obviously, you see them kind of decrease. So this is in the order of the sections, the 8 sections that we had. So I think there is a little natural decrease as people potentially exit the survey or don't complete it. But also people did respond more or less depending on the section that they did see. So there definitely is something going on here, but you do kind of see it overall trending downward as I'm assuming people get tired completing the survey. And so we did take demographics. It was the first section that we asked respondents to tell us a little bit about themselves. And so overall, 73% of the respondents were within city limits, and a majority of respondents have lived in Sandy for over 10 years. And then next slide. Most homeowners are inside single family home and own rather than rent. And in terms of age distribution, it was pretty balanced amongst between 30 and 65 years of age. We had a very low turnout for younger individuals between 18 and 29. It was less than 5%. So I don't know if this is the sampling and how we, went out and captured with Facebook ads or the demographic or just.
Did you do TikTok?
I did not do a TikTok video of
There
me
you go.
dancing or anything.
Next time.
Maybe that would be better for next time. But it was actually kind of shocking to have less than 5% be from that group. And then obviously on the staff report, all the filtered questions for each individual question had a bar graph with the responses. So I am presenting more or less the highlights tonight. And obviously if the questions, feel free to ask me here. And I think I even have the opportunity to answer potentially on the fly questions with some data if the system will allow me. For community image and reputation, which was the next section, 59% of respondents said that Sandy's reputation was good. Obviously excluding fair or that neutral stance there, which if you combine it, it is close to 90%. And that number did improve when comparing Sandy to other neighboring communities. Some of the comments you'll notice said that we should have used other cities that were further away as a comparison. I chose to try to keep it local and see how Sandy compares to other communities in the area in terms of any of these questions. At least that was the intent there. The next slide there. So and over 70% planned are very likely to remain in Sandy for the next 5 years. Just asking for their 5-year outlook. And I would imagine that those that are unsure are just, whatever happens in life. And then the next slide here, this one was, should I say, I don't want to say loaded question because I don't think that's it here, but it is very direct. And it turns out there were a lot of opinions about it. But this one asked whether or not people thought that the city was moving in the right direction. Only 25% of respondents said that we as the city. 34% didn't really have much of an opinion or a neutral opinion. And then obviously your 41% said that Sandy was moving in the wrong direction.
Any thoughts as to why 25? Any ideas, council or otherwise? I mean, does this surprise you or?
I could chime in with my thoughts to
Yeah.
get the conversation going. So if you look back at the earlier survey questions, you have a majority of people that have lived here for more than 10 years that are in a older age bracket. So I think, again, this is me just my own opinion, right? No data or no analysis to support this, but I think the comment that I hear a lot is that Sandy's growing too big, it's growing too much, there's so much more traffic here than there used to be. And so if you're sampling people that have lived here for a really long time and moved out here for maybe a quieter life and to retire, or have been here for 30 or 40 years and Sandy has continued to change, you're probably unhappy with the direction Sandy's going from that growth perspective. Certainly there's other controversial issues, right? Utility rates are ones that come up often in comments. You'll see later on that there's, broad support for correcting our infrastructure needs, but then the desire not to want to pay for it. And so that's hard to weigh those two realities. So I don't know if this is necessarily that we're moving in the wrong direction from a policy perspective, as much as I think Sandy as a community is just different than it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Greg, were there any written responses in this section?
Oh, yes.
Is there a consensus?
About 480,
Oh, just a few.
just a few. It was the most. And they are available for download too. I do have
Assuming none of them were glowing.
there's a few that are very nice, and had I been able to retain after reading all 1,800 in one day, and going through and filtering them,
Really?
it was a long day. And then I had to scrub through it again today, make sure before I posted it live. I would have showcased a few, because some of them were very nice, and I'm not saying everyone should go read them because it's very much time consuming. But they seem very honest.
Was there an overall idea and an overall?
I think this is one of the other reasons we wanted to present these as preliminary, because there's a lot of work to do to kind of really sort through all that. So I don't want to speak for you, but
I did have to use AI to help filter some things to try to come up with general response. It's not very good it was not very good at interpreting language as a statement as being good or bad or neutral, because it definitely differed compared to when I saw the results side by side. I'm gonna say I have a feeling, and this happens with surveys a lot, is that I think it's easier to talk negatively about something than to write something positive in a lot of cases. And so I would say it's up there about 80%, tend to be a little more negative.
I think if you think the city is going in the right direction and you actually believe that based on some knowledge, you're probably already coming to these meetings or on a committee or something, and everybody else, you only get engaged when something goes wrong. I mean, I lived in lots of cities where I could have cared less until something broke, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I'm not too concerned about 25%. I think it makes sense that it would be biased that way. I wouldn't read it as a warning necessarily politically.
It also provides a benchmark of seeing how things compare. If the survey is done again in the future and see, is it something that can be improved? As you'll see in the next slide here, we can actually just do a sneak peek and jump to it here.
With that many responses, I would like to see like a word search prioritizations. So you can see what the common themes were about, like whether they were pro or against. I would be interested to know what the commonality between them were.
are you referring to like a word cloud?
Yeah.
One of those?
I did do a top 10 list that tried to categorize them. Again, I had to use the assistance of AI on this one here. So it doesn't split it into good or bad. It just splits them into categories. And that is the next chart on the next page there,
Sorry, this one?
which was supposed to be a Pareto chart. But, and I know it's hard to read at the bottom, but I kid you not, I could not get Excel to make the legend larger on that one here. So,
Just read them bar by bar.
yeah, so the top one ended up being utility costs. With 42 responses, the second highest was rapid growth and overpopulation. Traffic and roads was third. Infrastructure management was the fourth. Loss of small town feel was 24. And I swear that one was actually larger because I felt like I saw that a lot. And so it would be interesting to check a couple of these myself more. 21 responses or hits for community pool needs. Shopping and dining variety was at 19. school system issues. So we did get comments about the school district and various things going on. Homelessness and crime was lumped into 15. And like I said, I did have AI do this, and so it lumped those categories together. And then community social environment, which is very vague, and I wish I knew a little bit more about what that one was. Because that one's not very helpful.
I do find it interesting that if you start with the second one, you go the rapid growth through loss of small town feel. Those four are all growth based, right? I mean, they're segmented, but really it's all about the growth and all the problems associated with growth.
What's the black line?
So the idea was the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, try to figure out where your 80% was. And those are the high priority things that you focus on. That's how it comes to how when I was learning more about it is that you don't tackle when it comes to businesses and making decisions, you don't tackle the small stuff, you look at the big stuff. So trying to prioritize your graph based on hit count was the way to kind of format that. So that one is actually the total percent over time. And so you could technically intersect that 80% or what level you wanted to see, which ones to the left incorporate or equal up to that 80%. That takes 20% of the time, or that 20% that takes 80% of the time. Obviously, assuming it is a normal distribution or no, something.
I mean, with that methodology, Greg, what you're saying is that the 80% that we should tackle are the first 6 columns. And to your point, Councilor Hoganson, that is all growth related.
Yeah.
Right.
And we know growth issues is not 20% of the time.
Except for
It's
utility. Well, depending on how we're measuring utility. Right now, people are throwing a lot of stuff into that, like PG.
There were some comments about other utilities as well. It's not just water and wastewater rates. There was,
Yeah.
PG specifically.
So Pareto 80-20 is about 80% of the value with 20% of the items of the work.
And we don't quite see that distribution here, but the graph is there for all of them, was an attempt to do that.
Right.
So the trend line could be removed. The goal was to try to add kind of a priority or urgency based on that count there for how you interpret that decision or that information. So that was all. It can be removed in the future because it obviously doesn't hold true. Moving on to the next section for public safety. Generally, people feel safe. And they feel even safer within their neighborhood. 71% of respondents rate the PD's police department services as good or excellent.
Woo.
And next slide here. This was the one that was divided, was automatic traffic enforcement. It was fairly even across the board, with actually less somewhere in the neutral area. When you looked at the 5, before lumping them together between very beneficial or very unbeneficial with 5 responses, each one was close to 20% on it. And it was the widest distribution that we had for the entire survey.
Can I, excuse me, since we may be bringing back something around this that you should talk about, this would be an interesting one to dive into more to see if there's a swing on the demographics. If you're older, are you more likely, or younger, or if you've been here a long time, short time? I'd be curious if there's any of the demographic data that factors into this, or if it's just everybody. It's just going to be a split.
Is this the city residents only?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I mean, somewhat, it's 64% for very and somewhat valuable, so.
I mean, this matches my anecdotal. I've talked to people about it, and what do you think? And they are pretty split. In fact, most people aren't for it until you really give them the same sales pitch that the lady did when she came here, in terms of the number of hours that it would take to get the same enforcement rate. So this just means if we're going to go ahead, there's a lot of PR and public education that would have to go with it.
I'm a little confused with your numbers and percentages wise. It almost appears that 70 to 100% think it's a great thing and everybody else below. Can you explain that?
No, it was supposed to be that the total equals 100%, and so
And then the rest is it's just visual.
is visual. It was the real numbers are 37% are find it valuable and 36% don't find it valuable, and then the middle was neutral, which is what 27-ish%. I wasn't going to attempt to do math tonight, sure. Also, if you go back and read the open-ended responses, this graph does not reflect the open-ended write-in responses. I think there are a lot more opposed to it that write in that they are opposed to it than those that say that they are for it. If that idea or habit carries through on most written responses. So I don't think the open-ended comments represent everything as well.
Given how many people are speeding through town, I'm sure, I can imagine, those folks that routinely, go more than 11 miles an hour through our town would be, finding it not valuable to have traffic cameras for obvious reasons. So, yeah, I don't know.
And Counselor Hokinson, there is a statistic on the next page, which we could jump to.
Well, I just want to, can you go back one? In this question, somewhat valuable. It's not like fair or neutral or whatever. This is kind of a little bit more, somewhat valuable seems not neutral.
And yeah, we get into the kind of valley of the fair and where does it swing, and I probably should have mentioned earlier on, I think the middle ground does hold value. It depends on the question as well.
Sure.
Which is, I tried not to take a stance on opinion and just kind of present the facts. But where it lies based on the question and the response, it is important whether or not you count that or a portion of that towards a yay or a nay. Yeah.
Go ahead. Thank you.
And so this one, Counselor Hokinson actually references the importance of speed enforcement in traffic at the bottom, where 80% say that speed and traffic enforcement is important.
Okay.
And so in addition to the mechanisms, there is also the level of importance that people rated certain types of enforcement.
Which question came first, the traffic cameras or this one?
The traffic cameras came after.
Okay.
And so the importance of speed and traffic enforcement was question 26, and 28 was the automated traffic enforcement.
We trapped them.
Yeah. And so also 92% of respondents say that theft prevention is important. Also 82% agree that community policing is important. And this gets into the idea there is no mechanism for people to no scarcity, and that's not the right word. There is nothing that requires a respondent to make a trade-off for one question or another. And so a lot of times you'll see on rankings for importance, everything is important or nothing is important. And so it's not like we're splitting up capacity, splitting up staff capacity and saying pick two or anything. It's just getting a feel on what people think are important. And when we presented the option, I think a lot of things are important too. And so it may not necessarily be reality or in terms of what could happen. It's just how important do people think it is? And so, yeah, there are several questions like that in the survey. And so I at least want to make note of it when that does happen.
Why do you think that theft prevention isn't 100% important? I mean, is it safe to assume that the 8% that say it's not important have not been
Those are the
victims?
shoppers.
Okay. It's just interesting, like either you've never been a victim of a crime, so you just don't think it exists and it's not, therefore it's not important, or I guess you're the perpetrator of a crime, to your point, Mayor. It's an interesting metric.
I think you naturally get some individuals that try to gauge it and compare it against other types of levels. And it's not like you can see all the questions ahead of time and get your answer. It just asks you one question after the other. And so with all the different factors, there is bias incorporated into it. I didn't mention before, Facebook is kind of a non-statistical way of sampling. And so we punted up to the algorithm to kind of pick and choose who it goes out to. We did do a boosted ad, which got it in front of more people. And the only parameter that I configured on it was I said 5 miles from the center of Sandy out. And I just and blanketed all of Sandy, but I didn't go out all the way to the edges of the county or library district or up the mountain necessarily. I did focus the majority of Facebook responses inside city limits. I also believe, based on the numbers that I was able to see from the Facebook engagement, it was probably the biggest factor that got the responses for the survey. And so it does also, that kind of sampling doesn't over or undersample, but it also doesn't allow you to control that. And so in a lot of community surveys, they pick a subset of homes or individuals, mail out or do a phone interview or in person. It's definitely a smaller sample size, and but you can target demographics, so you could oversample certain demographics if you wanted to, at the interest of the city. This one, you have no control over that, so you kind of get what you get. Just something to keep aware of, if you're trying to figure out who responded and why things might be the way they are. I think it's important to talk about the different sways or biases that exist. And there ought to be a section later on that talks about lessons learned. There definitely will be for my final report for class, because I did learn stuff in this process. And one of them was tracking better where responses came from. And the way to do that would have been to create a custom link, one for Facebook, one for the Sandy source, so that they all got to the same result, but it tracked them differently to see which ones were most engaging over others. And I wish I did have that data, because it would have been nice to present to kind of show where did they get notified.
Yeah, and one thing I could give you is the number of clicks off of the newsletter.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean they actually took it. Right.
Between that and Facebook, I think you would see that would be the majority.
Yeah.
There are some obviously that we can't track. But just for the future, I think there are some lessons that could be learned in that sense. Let's jump over to the next one here. The write-ins for public safety, and the graph is covered up, so it's public safe. The traffic and speeding did happen to be the number one comment for write-ins. Running red lights and stoplights along the kind of the same category. Opposition to traffic cameras was third. Homelessness was the fourth. Intersection and infrastructure, which I'm assuming had to do with traffic safety, fifth. Pedestrians and crosswalk safety, drugs and substance abuse, code enforcement issues, property crimes and theft, and then schools and e-bikes. There were a number of comments regarding e-bikes and scooters.
I think that spike on traffic and speeding is meaningful.
Well, it's right after the last, I think the other question was 28, right? The question about
Traffic
cameras was
was
28, so
28.
this is 29.
But it just got a lot of response.
It could have primed very much could have primed
I
the
think,
respondent.
I think it matches, once again, the anecdotal feedback we receive from the people we interact with, or ourselves. We're concerned.
Okay. Local economy and employment. I could not find a better word for local economy, so I tried to emphasize to talk about Sandy specifically, but also talk about employment opportunities. These were a little interesting. I think the majority that were fair or indifferent in this case either aren't living in it daily or maybe don't have much of an opinion on it, because it is a good chunk. Because 45% of respondents only called it fair and 33% said it was good. In terms of job opportunities, 41%, this was the largest response category, said that employment opportunities were poor or not great. And then the largest issue. Oh, sorry, 75% of respondents did continue, did support the city-owned infrastructure, continuing, wow. 75% of respondents supported the continued investment in city-owned infrastructure. Also, when you see these graphs, I tried to follow a pattern of largest category first, and then it had to follow whether it was neutral, always ended up being the middle. And so when poor or bad was biggest, it was presented first, and when good was biggest, it was presented so you could see the good section or the largest section and get the more accurate number without having to do math. There wasn't any intended trickery or anything like that when I put the graphs together for that.
I think this section, I wish some of those responses were better, but I'm not surprised by that. I think our economic strategic strategic plan really sort of highlighted the gap in services that we have out here in terms of retail or healthcare or some other, market specific pieces. So this doesn't shock me. Like I said, I wish it was better, but I'm not stunned by, 41% of people rating that local employment opportunities are poor. If a good percentage of our population travels to get to work, right? Because there isn't 13,000 jobs in Sandy.
So I think that's important as you guys work on the economic development to think of what economic health means to different segments of our community. Because if you are that commuter and you've got a great job and you're just commuting for 20 years, my view of economic health is how many boarded up buildings I see when I drive. That's it. That's my only visual indicator of the health. But if I own a business, I may have a very different opinion.
Yeah.
And so forth. Or if I'm a young person or a renter or somebody with less transportation who wants to work local, I'm going to have very strong feelings about some of this. So it's probably one of those measures that shouldn't be looked at in a composite.
Yeah.
You almost have to look at the individuals and how they're affected or impacted by it.
We're having good discussion. I just want to kind of,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of other things on the agenda tonight.
Right.
Including an exec session, and I don't want to get out at 11 o'clock like we did last time.
I will try to speed it up.
It's
We're,
great
I think, a little over halfway on this one here. The last thing I would say about the statistics in general is none of these are going to probably give you, you as the council, definitive actions. Oftentimes from a statistics point, it means, oh, you need more information or you need to follow up and be more precise with that information. It oftentimes, when you get a high degree of confidence when comparing questions or on the responses, just says, I think there's something going on here that we need to look at more. And so, the only thing I would kind of mention is in the future, in terms of surveys, smaller surveys, community surveys over time, the question, the way it's written is the responses are about the question. So unless they ask very specific questions, it's unlikely that you'll get truly actionable results directly from a single question. All right, next one. I apologize if you can't read this. This one ought to have been split into 2 slides there. I'll just read the top ones. It's also in the agenda packet underneath questions 40 and 41. And that is in terms of services that residents leave Sandy for, 77% said healthcare. And this was a click all that apply option. 72% said they leave Sandy for retail options, and 68% said they leave Sandy for entertainment. And those were the top 3 that were over 50%. In terms of livability barrier, I just put this one in. You can see the blue section is utilities and infrastructure, where 61% cited that utilities and infrastructure are the top issue that Sandy is facing in the future. And then next slide. Write-ins, number 1 at about 43 or 42 is high utility costs. Infrastructure and sewer is the second. Overdevelopment and density was third. Traffic and road conditions was next. Retail and grocery store variety, dining and entertainment quality, housing costs and property tax, medical facility needs, job and career opportunities, and vacant buildings and revitalization. Okay, move on to transportation and mobility. 59% rated Sandy streets as being good or excellent, not excluding the highway, specifically major streets in Sandy. If all of you took the survey, you would have seen I highlighted major streets as defined in TSP as a picture, so respondents could relate to it or look at it directly. 43% rated the downtown traffic low as poor. And in terms of SAM and transit, 74% believe that the price for the fare is correctly set. And we did skip over a lot of other ones, but all the other questions are in the staff report since these are mostly highlights to that.
That should have been the question.
How much does Sam cost?
It's $1.
It's a dollar. It was in the question.
Oh,
Oh, I'm
It was in
sorry.
the question.
No,
wasn't it?
the question should have been, how much does Sam cost?
Oh.
See the- see the-
Yeah.
It's $1?
Yeah.
It's been that for as long as I can remember.
I apologize,
Since
that
it went-
wasn't the
since it
question,
went from
right?
Fairness.
It was in the question.
It was Fairness.
Right, and I guess I was under the impression it still was. That's why I was like, I guess that's a fair price.
Yeah, the question was the cost to ride SAM outside of city limits is $1. How would you rank the cost of the service? And it was too expensive. priced
Okay,
correctly.
outside the city limits is
Yeah.
$1.
Yeah, so if you ride like the.
It's- That's what I thought. I thought it was
internally,
fairless
that
around
doesn't-
town. Okay, I'm tracking now. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then these ones, because they had lower number of responses, they did top 5. Sidewalk and biking and crosswalks, traffic congestion, safety and homelessness, transit inconvenience, and then transit spending and finances. Okay. Parks and Recreation and Library are lumped into one here. 73% of respondents rate Sandy's parks as good or excellent. And when you include the fair or neutral response, that gets it pretty darn close to 100. Winterfest, 80% rated it good or excellent. And for the community center, the question was first, have you utilized the community center in the past year? And if you did, please rate your experience. What were you there for? What service did you partake in? And then what was your experience? And 82% had a positive experience. On the next one. And again, I'll explain this one here. The one on the right, if you can't read it, is it looks great on a 4K screen, by the way. Just know that that's not what's here. The physical materials ended up accounted for about 75% of the services, or the largest offering, the service that the library offers. And then about 75% say the technology and level of electronic materials is either good or excellent. And then we move over to the word count for the written in responses. That's for Parks and Rec. Highest number of responses was around the pool. The next was homelessness and safety. Desire for, I wouldn't say desire, it's just comments about sport fields and courts, parks and trails maintenance, and expanding or widening walking paths and biking paths. And then the library written in responses are the next one. This one was the only category that explicitly called out praise for staff. And quality there as being, I think that's 32 responses. Because usually the categories try to remain ambiguous about that, as opposed to what AI chose to put for it. Parking and accessibility issues was the next biggest issue. Variety in children and youth programs was third. Digital service application, like mobile application for the library, was the fourth one that had the most comments, and then safety and homelessness was the fifth category. And then we move on to public engagement and interaction. 47% of respondents said they engaged with the city at some point in the last year for something, questions or information, and 68% of those respondents had a positive experience with their interaction. The information gap, and this how informed do you feel that you are about City of Sandy issues, goals, and projects? And 31% feel they're uninformed, a majority feel somewhat informed, and a very small percentage, 9, say that they are very confident and feel they are very informed. This is also one that could be correlated with other questions in the future.
Let's get their water bill in the mail. Call mine.
Yeah. I'll pay.
And then as for written in information, the category that it lumped the most into was feelings of being ignored. The second was meeting announcements and timelines for public meetings. The third was level of awareness of newsletter. There were a number of written in responses I know specifically that said, I didn't know about the newsletter, or some people that even wrote in and said, I just signed up for it. So, and that was there was another question related to the sample source in that group there. We see a continuation on number 4, growth and infrastructure. And then the last one was digital and social media. And I can find the rest of the word for that. Social media engagement needs, which I think was lumped into the meeting announcement and information on, I mean, some comments were information like, please post meeting times online. They are, they are posted on Facebook, they're posted on the city website. And so some of those might be duplicates of that, or just the way that the categorization got put in. Okay. The last one, the last section was just overall quality of life, and the I is capitalized. Yep. And this one was a very small section, and it basically it doesn't really have a whole lot of action. I threw this one in because I just wanted to see how people were doing, and 84% said that they were good or excellent, which was higher than honestly I was expecting, and so I was happy to see that. The next one was, okay, how good are you? How good do you think the rest of the city is? And it ended up being lower at only 67%, saying that it was good or excellent. And with that, those are the highlights of the survey. Comments, concerns, follow-ups. What would you like to see? What can I do? Criticism, things like that.
Well, I think it's fantastic to get this kind of, snapshot of what folks are thinking. The questions were very well written. I'm really, it's very informative, I think.
Thank you.
Very good job. Well worth a master's project there.
I concur. It's better response rate than I was expecting. I mean, I'd love to see some focused follow-ups over the next year, on certain areas as we get into more topics. We kind of, as we go into like a red light topic, it might be interesting to do a red light camera, topic, to do a very focused few questions, not a 20-minute, but something you can fill out in 3 or 4 minutes, just to get a broader, more specific feedback.
Greg, will you remind me what, at the end of the survey, there was a question that said, would you be willing to participate in more surveys?
Yes.
What were the percentages like on that? Do you recall?
355 individuals said that they would be willing to perform or partake in a follow-up survey or a future survey. And we received 8 responses with phone numbers for requesting a call specifically, 82 for a text message to take the link for a link to ask them to take the survey, and 261 emails. So it wasn't obviously a majority, but that's a decent number for a sample later on to focus on something specifically.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well done. Yeah.
I enjoyed the results more than actually taking it.
I did receive comments that it was too long. There were a couple in there. I think in the future, obviously, find some questions that might be more important than others, or comparing against. There's a balance between keeping your general questions the same and follow-up surveys to help establish beyond the baseline change and how things are going, but also asking about current issues and projects as well to take people's temperature on.
I thought it was nice because it wasn't a blanket survey. It was directed towards issues in Sandy right now. So where it may have been longer, I think it was appropriate for finding out what people know, what we're doing, what they can do, where they can find it out. I thought it was, it didn't seem like it took that long when I took it. So, it was smooth, and I think the results are a good snapshot of not just your cookie cutter questions, but kind of a more broad picture and a little bit more personal. So, thank you.
So we don't know exactly what future surveys will look like yet, but we do plan on utilizing this sort of format and outreach tool again in the future to engage the public on initiatives or topics. I'm also going to spend some time with Greg filtering through, maybe not with Greg, we've already done it once, filtering through the write-in responses that we had, finding some common themes and figuring out a way to best respond to or address some of those recurring comments that came up. So again, not quite sure exactly what that looks like and the format for that, but do want to be responsive. You know, we got information, we should do something with that information and let people know that we've seen the information. And if there's simple questions we can answer, let's put that somewhere that's on our website or in a newsletter or in some other way engage with those respondents. So yeah, great information. We've got future work to do for sure, but we don't want this information and the results to go to waste. So we're gonna figure out a way to utilize that going forward.
Can you do something similar? Like, I know about the Facebook ads, but with like Instagram or TikTok for real? And get that, because I mean, I honestly think that's how you miss that one demographic, is they're not on Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook ads hits Instagram, does it not, as part of their?
I don't know that.
I would have to drill down. I know you can exclude it. I don't know if it's on by default.
So you can, with the campaign, you can hit both of those. TikTok.
They also do look different because it's different on how it presents information. So you have to upload a photo or do a video with it, which is a different act than potentially how an ad gets created and posted on Facebook. TikTok, obviously a different ad service. Google's a different one.
No, it's
In the
perfect
future,
for what it
I-
was. I was just curious for moving forward.
I'm not a social media expert on purpose, so nor do I have the face for it. So I can't be an influencer, and
Weren't you on a billboard?
no, not on a billboard, only YouTube. But I think it's something I will say a better planned out way of trying to represent that demographic, knowing just how low it was, means that you could try to oversample it in the future and directly go for an age group or something like that. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
so
Good job.
much.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Really interesting. So the next item we have is the Clackamas County Transportation System Plan.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to keep my initial comments pretty brief because I think really the discussion needs to happen amongst you all up there. As you know, Clackamas County is working on updating their transportation system plan. The current process is looking ahead to 2045. They conducted a virtual open house in February. The mayor and I were in attendance at that. It was really sort of just like an introductory kickoff to what their full meal deal of work was, but it wasn't not a lot of interaction in terms of reporting issues and highlighting concerns in that specific open house that we attended. And so really the intent this evening is to have an open dialogue with the council and identify where there are concerns within the greater Clackamas County area that we can sort of push a collective narrative of. The city of Sandy highlights these 4 or 5 or 6 areas of improvement to incorporate into the county's TSP. We internally have talked about this with the department head team and some staff and have identified 3 intersections or areas that should be highlighted. Again, that's just from staff's perspective, so you can all take it or leave it. But I'll just run through those really quickly. The first is the extension of 362nd Avenue North to Kelso Road. We did the 362nd and Bell improvements. There's a gap in 362nd before it picks back up closer to Kelso Road. So in extending that roadway would help facilitate the flow of traffic, especially with future development in that area. The need for additional entries and exits, I think, is going to be vital for good traffic flow. Installation of a stoplight or other improvements at the intersection of Highway 211 and 362nd. It's another intersection that I hear, not a lot about because people aren't calling me for outside city limit issues, but I do hear from people occasionally that it's, really difficult to see when you're trying to turn left. People are going too fast. You can't really get a good, gauge on how far away that car is and how quickly they're moving. And so some sort of infrastructure improvements at that intersection, especially as Sandy continues to grow.
That seems really far down the list for me. I'm surprised it's in the top 3. Just curious.
And these are in no particular order. These are just areas that we highlighted. I think that one also, because a lot of flow from neighboring communities like Estacada, for example, people are grocery shopping here, that sees the impact of not just Sandy, but a lot of other residents coming from Estacada and Eagle Creek into our community or towards Sandy. And then the last thing that we identified, which is no surprise to any of you, I'm sure, is intersection improvements to the intersection of Ten Eyck, Highway 26, that sort of conundrum of who owns what, who's responsible for what. Currently Clackamas County is the responsible jurisdiction for Ten Eyck from the highway down the hill. And then, of course, ODOT's responsible for the highway, and then we're responsible for Pleasant and Hood that are off of Ten Eyck, and we're responsible for the other side of the highway on Wolf. And so it's just kind of a confusing intersection at best. A lot of cooks in the kitchen, so that was just highlighted as, some sort of come to Jesus meeting, for lack of a better term, of like, what can we do here, and let's do it if there's a path forward. So we have a map we can pull up and share if there's key locations you all want to look at. If there's other ideas you already have, we're going to be taking notes so we can talk about.
Are you trying to limit it to city or the growth boundary just beyond the city, or?
Out growth beyond it, not in the city, because
Because we
they
are.
told us they're not including anything in the city.
The only reason why,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
the only reason why I noted the Ten Eyck improvements, it is within city limits, but it's a county road, and I think it's imperative that the
Right.
county not forget that they do own roads
Yeah.
within city limits. But this discussion needs to be focused on county roads outside of Sandy limits,
I'll
in
throw one
its
out.
general terms.
Sure,
So I think Fernwood,
yeah.
in 26 is very dangerous. There's a high death count there. We're thinking outside the city. I would put that far before ahead of 211 and 362nd.
I will say I spoke with Counselor Smallwood earlier today, and she mentioned that her number one priority would be 362nd north to Kelso, just recognizing future traffic flow issues over there. And a close second was the Fernwood and Highway 26 improvements.
Because if we grow out that way, we're going to put pressure on that new development with Lincoln Center. It's going to get busier and busy. Sooner or later, someday Trumbull will become a major carrier, and that will be Sandy, an effective Sandy bypass. We need to think towards that, in that 20 years out range.
Two things. One, I think if we're going to propose something to the county, do you think we should be either prioritize it or keep it limited to, everybody has the ability to get on and answer the same survey and get their project in there, but if we're going to truly ask that it carries some weight from the city, I think it needs to be prioritized or limited. While I don't disagree with that, I actually really like this list. And then the reason being behind that is, I think that the only thing I would say is I would, if I was prioritizing, I think I'd put Kelso towards the bottom. But the 211 the 26 and 10 Ike thing, that's just the debacle up there. It needs to be repaired. And I don't know how you do it. But the 362nd and 211, to your point, as it grows, that's an intersection that's on a major thoroughfare between multiple communities that is going to have more and more strain on it, even more so. Furwood and 26, I 100% agree, but I also see that as being more of an ODOT thing as opposed to a county issue. Just given the way the intersection's designed and where the crashes occur. Same thing with the Kelso Road. I'm sorry, Kelso and 26 North, which is Kelso, so.
Council Mayton?
No, it's.
I don't have any inference or preference to it. I think I agree with most of what Richard said. So,
Council Ramsay?
The Furwood one is a big one, but also, the 211 and 26, if you're going on 211 and you're trying to turn left, you cannot see a car coming up that hill. You're basically just white knuckling it and hoping that you get out there quick enough.
211 and 26?
366.
367.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, that one's, but the Furwood one is a lot. The
Mhm.
Furwood one, I've known several people who've been in accidents and caused accidents and, you're kind of putting yourself out there and you're hoping for the best sometimes because it's just so quick and people are coming and they're going and they're getting somewhere, they're coming home. Yeah. I think I pretty much agree with everything that everything's, that's all.
Jeff, would you mind, can you just lay out what the 362nd to Kelso or to Kelson?
Yeah, it should say Kelso, that's just me
Oh,
having a typo.
That would be here.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Okay.
Why don't
So
you
again,
kind of
that's-
can you show aerial?
Oh, you want the satellite view? Yeah.
It's not a huge priority for today, but certainly as
At some point.
as that section of town develops, that's gonna be a traffic issue waiting to happen.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a two pots, is kind of the future projects that we will need to kind of pursue growth there. Then there's these existing road issues and all.
Mhm.
Yeah,
If we were to get big commercial in there, that would be an absolutely necessary way to divert from, to take some of the pressure off of 362nd down to 26.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one too, because part of 362nd would extend north as the north parcel developed. I don't know if you want to zoom right where your cursor is.
Right here.
That would get, the road would be extended about that far because it's in alignment with the property line or the parcel. So then you're gonna have an even shorter gap to get to that northern terminus of 362nd. So, it's kind of like you're building this road to nowhere on that stretch. And so having the county really prioritize that connectivity component, I think would be
Well,
helpful.
and without it, if things do go in there and when traffic gets different, you're gonna have people going towards the high school, or you're gonna have them going up towards Golden Rain and all of those through Sandy Bluff. And that's just gonna put a lot of extra cars and extra people traveling through neighborhoods
yeah,
that,
having another outlet would be.
yeah, that the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit is just not, that's just not a great plan to not have an outlet for that one too.
You sure?
Yeah, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind expanding upon why you wouldn't would you still put shorties on there with the Furwood thing, or would you, like, you know what I mean? If we did 4, would shorties be on there, or would it be? I just want,
Yeah, absolutely. I see that intersection as more of an ODOT problem as opposed to the Furwood connection. 211 and 362, it's the 362 connection that makes the issue.
Mhm.
26, it's the design of 26 with the sweeping corner and stuff. So for the county to have to take that on, I just don't see it being in their priorities. So I'm not saying it shouldn't be fixed. I mean, absolutely.
Oh, sure,
My
that's
understanding is it's one of the most dangerous intersections in the. But if we're talking to the county for their TSP and what their project list should be, it's not their problem. If I'm gonna be blunt,
Sure.
it's an ODOT issue. Thus, it doesn't, again, if you could throw if we want to just throw everything at it, then fine, but I honestly think if we're gonna say, hey, everybody has the chance to answer the survey and everybody should get on it. But if we're gonna take projects and say, hey, I think these are the ones that are important to Sandy and ask for it to have special consideration, I think we need to be very cognizant and make sure that those are truly our priorities. Does that make sense? That's my pushback with 26. That's my only pushback with 26. I want on that one. I 100% it's a horrible, it's a dangerous intersection.
Would a speed reduction in that area, you know, it's 55 plus now, going down to, you know, 45? I mean, is that something that the county could kind of advocate to ODOT too?
Probably, I was gonna add that, you know, if we could certainly discuss with the county that we recognize you're not the funder for these intersection improvements, but it's a huge safety concern from our perspective. And, you know, any sort of support or letters of support or advocating that you need to encourage ODOT to make those improvements, we're happy to throw our weight behind that. I mean, I can message that differently, but
Yeah.
to not ignore it and include it, but just recognize that you're not the funding source. But we're supportive of that improvement that needs to happen. Because I do think that's another, you know, it's a high impact intersection for sure that is leading directly into our community. If Stone Road was, you know, 200 feet more east, I would be saying that's another intersection that we should be advocating for improvements on. But that's not in Clackamas County's jurisdiction, so.
Commissioner Henley, what are your?
So I think the list is great. I would add shorties on there and then just work on the which ones we think are. I mean, I think we should have 4 priorities, and I think those are the 4.
Commissioner Hookinson,
Oh, I'm fine with that.
you've got,
What Lenny said.
okay.
I
I would add, I think that the whole Tenike Road stuff, let me back up one step. I think it is a concern for me that we have sections of County Road on Bornstead adjacent to our developments and on Kelso. Are there other ones? Tenike, obviously. Tenike, Kelso, and Bornstead all have sections where they're within the city limits. And so when we had the development Bornstead Views over there on Bornstead, you know, the county traffic engineer gets involved and is kind of the one that, you know, allows the developer to do or not do things, which kind of keeps us out of it. It got to be a little bit of an issue over there in Sandy Woods on Kelso here this last summer, where all of a sudden the road was closed and I was trying to get somewhere in a hurry. And I was, you know, like, you know, why nobody had notified the neighborhood or anything. And so, you know, it was just kind of stuff like that. So I do believe that we should be able to work with them to transfer jurisdiction of the roads within city limits for Kelso, Bornstead, and Tenike. But I don't necessarily want to use up one of our categories for that. That just seems like kind of more of a policy, what do you call that? A intergovernmental agreement type stuff that, you know, I think we need to bring it up and discuss it with them, but I don't want to say, you know, it's the biggest priority for road the county needs to, I don't think it's a lot of work on their part, and I can't imagine them fighting that. So it's more like we're taking stuff off their hands. So using up one of our chits for that would be, you know, a problem. So I would like to kind of pursue that Tenike and Kelso and Bornstead all as one bunch, but in a different lane. Otherwise, I think that, you know, both Furwood and 362nd are important improvements, at least at 362nd and 211, you have the opportunity, you could conceive of a traffic circle there because you've got the room for it. They're doing one over on Amsicker, you know, on 224, they're not far away, Amsicker and 224. So, you know, that might be one of the options to consider. I don't know that it has to be a stoplight. I just think it has to be some sort of, you know, improved safety stuff. So yeah, I would just, you know, and I think, I don't, could probably maybe consider the same thing at Furwood, but I don't know if they'd go for that, ODOT. But yeah, I would just say 362nd, 211 and Furwood are both important. And then the second one would be the extension of Kelso going there, because once that develops, like Councilor Ramsayer said, is having that additional egress from that area other than the highway and Bell to Bluff. It's, yeah,
Can I ask one
go
thing?
for it.
To your point of taking over jurisdiction of the road. Before we do that, I think we should have a conversation about making sure that it reaches a proper pavement management index and that it's going to be acceptable for us to take it before we take on that. I don't want to just
Yeah.
take something and.
Right. No,
So I'm gonna interrupt and say that our next agenda item is a bin list, and I think this is a perfect option to add to that bin
Yeah.
list and incorporate into prioritization of when and how to do that.
Yeah.
And not related necessarily to the TSP, but
Right.
separate council action.
Right.
But to your point, I think the county would be more than willing to get rid of a couple pieces of road,
Right,
and it is a simple IGA process.
right.
So
And I think when we did 211, they gave us like $550,000 to kind of bring some stuff up to speed. So, you know, that's.
yeah, ODOT gave us 500,000. The majority of that is for the ADA
Yeah. the
ramps
ADA
that
stuff.
need to be
Yeah.
installed that don't have sidewalks that get you to the ADA
Exactly,
ramp.
right.
Kind of an odd scenario, but the county, I know, I had talked to the county, gosh, 2 years ago now, maybe, about the Ten Eyck stretch of road. There was a small dollar amount they were willing to contribute as part of a transfer.
Hasn't there been another discussion just recently? I thought AJ was saying that he had been meeting with ODOT and I thought there was kind of more progress on that recently.
I think ODOT has, I'm sorry, I think AJ had talked to ODOT about the traffic signals and things at that intersection, not the actual jurisdiction
The timing.
transfer.
I think it was
The timing of the signal,
Second
yeah.
Signals, I thought it was also, well, so I
I mean, it
thought
all sort of
Ten Eyck
intermingles.
County, you know, that section of Ten Eyck where you have the secondary egress or entrance into 7-Eleven and all that would be on their dime, I mean, their jurisdiction at this point.
Okay. The county will not make any improvements to that portion of Ten Eyck because there's nothing that meets their, I'm gonna forget the appropriate terminology, but their traffic metrics, for lack of a better term, that their traffic manual that they use has certain criteria, and there's no criteria that are met to improve
That are
Ten
bad
Eyck.
enough to be,
The
that are bad enough
traffic
to
backup is not bad enough to warrant making any sort of improvements along Ten Eyck to prevent people from turning into the 7-Eleven intersection. So really the key to fixing that intersection and some of the related challenges is to get the county out of the kitchen.
but, you know, to get them out of the picture, is that what you said?
Yeah, out of the kitchen, but
Out-
yeah,
right.
out of the picture, out of
Yeah.
our,
Okay.
yeah, space.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on,
Yes.
go ahead.
So this is all about roads and cars. What about bikes? Because TSP would cover other forms of transportation as well. So in that regard, I'd love to see them tackle some safe bike routes to Gresham. You know, right now it's just open highway. I don't know what the solution is, but I'd like them to really look at the safer bike routes to Gresham, bike routes to the parkway that starts in Boring.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Sweetwater, thank you, the Sweetwater Trail. So some connectivity.
Yeah.
Bike connectivity
Yeah.
between here and there.
yeah, that's a good point.
And that would be, hopefully that would be a separate push because it wouldn't be.
Right.
This
It-
for.
It is, here's what I will say about that. Two things. One is, the connection between Sandy and Boring is on the Metro Regional Trails map, or it was. And then the other thing, is that, you know, we have some easement along there
Mhm.
and we're kind of looking at how that might happen. What are the routes that could take place?
Now, if we had safe way to get from here to the Springwater, I mean, now you're into Gresham, so.
Well, now you're into, you know, it's called the Mount Hood to Rose City.
Yeah,
Trail
exactly.
Corridor.
We've got the
Because
whole
you're in,
thing.
once
You
you're
go all the
in,
way
you know,
downtown.
once you're in Boring, you're into Gresham, you're into Portland, you're into trails that go all around Portland and,
We'd have to
to the
address the homeless
coast.
problem, but that's another problem.
Right, but, you know, I don't, you know, I mean, and that's honestly why it hasn't been raised as, you know, because of the fact that you had the Springwater so bad for, you know, I mean, it had become a verb, you know, having a trail, regional trail become Springwater. And so I think, you know, with adequate enforcement. And that, met with Gresham and some exec Clackamas County there. I met with them a couple weeks ago, the parks director for Boring Station and all, and they don't really have a problem out there. You're just too far out.
My request is more general. Let's just look at that.
That's good.
Getting us connected.
Yeah,
to
so
the
there is
rest of
some
town.
progress that way.
Nice, thanks.
Do you have what you need?
I do. I think there's consensus that Furwood and 26 and 362nd and 211 are sort of like the top two priorities if we were prioritizing, but also the 362nd and Kelso Road extension and the 10 Ike and 26 improvements are important. And then certainly any sort of bike improvements for safe biking from Sandy westbound.
It's like,
is
360,
helpful.
when they did 362nd, which I guess they did quite a bit of stuff out there. I don't really drive that very often. But, what I heard from people was, why didn't they put a bike lane in there when they were doing it?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
lost opportunity. Okay, well,
Very helpful. Thank
yeah.
you.
The other thing I will kind of it's kind of a married thing to the community survey, but what I liked about the Clackamas County TSP is they did have a really cool survey methodology, whatever they had, it was kind of very interactive. You could go to this map and put a, pin there at this intersection. Here's the problem. Here's what you should do. Not that everybody's a traffic engineer, but we all think we are. So it was just really a cool interactive way. And so when we talk about following up with community surveys, especially when it comes to our roads and safety issues and things like that, having that interactive methodology would really help get us even better specificity, I think. So, yeah. Okay, the next item really quick is kind of what Jeff kind of asked me, what's a bin list? And that's probably a Forest Service term. And being a meeting facilitator for many years, we always had kind of another flip chart over here that was our bin list. And so as when stuff came up in a meeting that was kind of outside the scope of what we were talking about or supposed to be talking about or supposed to be making a decision or whatever, a lot of times as a facilitator, I would say, well, let's go ahead and put that on the bin list. And it's a way to kind of track it, but not spend any more time dealing with it because we're not on task. So the things that I've kind of thought about over the time, but it's also let me back up. It's also important because sometimes Tyler will hear things from me or from Counselor Hanley or whoever, all of us have kind of mentioned things that we'd like to see, some little item. And can we do this? We should look at this, whatever. And so he has trouble kind of sometimes knowing, is that something that just, Walker wants, or is that something that, 5 out of 7 want or what? And so it's kind of also an opportunity for him to kind of take our temperature of, is everybody else think this is something that we should kind of spend a little time on and work out? So that's kind of where that bin list came from. So it's just kind of a tracking mechanism. So the things that, we've talked about in the past are some code updates. Kelly used to have a bin list of code amendments that they just kept track of.
And we've kind of got that outlined here on these first couple
Yeah.
bullet points of things that are in the background that Kelly and his staff are working on. And then the next set of bullet points on page 2 is some of the bin list items that.
Well, like the parks and open space code language for structures, what we kind of found going through the Deer Point thing was that there's, it's not necessarily written for park structures. And there's things like, when do we put in restrooms and when do we not? How much parking do neighborhood parks require, if any? And so those kind of things can kind of, we actually did a designation of parks and open space as a new zone. And I said, well, what's the code language? Where's the code language for it? Oh, we'll develop that later. So we've had it for quite a few years and we're still waiting. And so that becomes important when we have issues like Deer Point. It's not critical, but it's something to kind of, as we're working on it, at least have the Parks and Trails Advisory Board kind of take a stab at it. I'm not sure what the accessory structures for commercial is.
Just a brief comment on that. So currently the code would require your accessory structure if you're a commercial property and you have some small building on your property that's maybe storage or something like that. It requires it to meet all the Sandy style elements as your normal building would. And so Kelly's team is recommending some modifications to that to really from a business owner perspective, reduce some of the barriers and costs associated with building improvements that you can't see from the street or that really provide no aesthetic value. So meeting some of the Sandy style elements, still having it visually pleasing, but not, maybe the roof pitch is a little different, or maybe you only have 3 elements instead of 5 elements, or just some reasonable, what staff believes is a reasonable modification to existing code requirements. Is it urgent? No. Is it one of those things that's been in the back
Yeah,
burner
that's
for a
what
long
we're
time?
doing. Yeah. So what about the retaining walls, fences, temporary uses, structures? You kind of clarify that?
Do you remember what that is?
And,
Because
yeah,
I left my notes upstairs
all
for
right.
that
We don't
one.
need to- yeah,
So
You're getting into
I-
the details.
No, I just want to know what it is
Yeah,
referring to.
yeah, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Necessarily, I just want to ask you at some point during this discussion, because I've given this some thought and I wrote up a couple slides, not as to things that go on the list, but maybe how we manage the list.
Right.
Potential changes to our council rules and things. And so if, with your permission, I'd love to share them and walk through, be about a 5-minute discussion.
Let's get through the list real quick. What my intent was to just kind of bring up the idea of having a list, and then process wise, like you're saying, Don,
Mhm.
is kind of, how do we, we'll have a list. So when something like this comes up in a meeting, we can say, let's add that to the bin list. So it officially goes on there. And then at a next meeting or future meeting, we can then kind of take the temperature to decide to keep it on the bin list or to remove it. So.
I think you two are
I don't think
speaking
we're
the same
far-
language.
I don't think we're far apart. I've just given the latter part maybe some more thought and given no thought to what should be on the list.
Okay, so property maintenance codes, blah, 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 codifying fire stuff, I didn't quite. So the other thing that I've heard from the public is noise ordinances, solicitation door-to-door ordinance. We've already kind of drafted something up that we got from another city for that. Utility due dates, bill due dates kind of have been fairly compressed at certain times of the year when it's a short month and there's other stuff going on. The roles and responsibilities of city council, just kind of something clarifying some of that based on when we write letters of support or as individuals, and we use our title, how does, is that everything everybody agrees that we should do? We've had that discussion in 2020, I think, too, just talking about the difference between freedom of speech and then representing the city. And then the Cedar Ridge Middle School and high school traffic issues. So that's kind of the bin, what's on the bin list. And then I'll be glad to hear, I'm not sure what you've got there, but
Only one way to find out. Take a chance on me?
yeah.
Okay.
So the one thing that the mayor didn't mention is that county road discussion.
All
So
right, yeah,
a new bullet point that I
Yeah.
just added
right.
to the bin list.
Yeah, so what I'm going to talk about isn't about a specific thing on the list, but it's more how we might approach the list. And I threw this together in like the 10 minutes before I came here, where I was also dealing with my delinquent special needs child who was involved with the police, Chase, thank goodness. And so there's a couple of typos. Please ignore them. I'll walk you through them. All right, so the thought process around this was more than just the bin list, but it's really about how do we prioritize these council discussions? How do we, especially in the new era of limited communications?
Mhm.
And for me, that's the key. This is an opportunity to bring together some of the other topics I've been complaining about, what something the mayor wants to do and so forth. So the first slide, the issue as I see it, obviously it's complicated. What we used to do, we used to talk. I would reach out to Rich, I'd reach out to whoever, we'd kind of get together an idea. I think I had some support. And then I'd bring something to council. I'd even talk to the mayor back and forth. Mayor, I want to bring this to council. Okay, great. We do it. So many of those communications now are on the greater blacklist in terms of how you read the fact from the OGEC. So the new rules, the question really is, how do you get support for an idea? If you're the mayor, I can put my idea on an agenda and we can talk about it. But if I'm not the mayor, how do I get my idea to get appropriate time without taking over time? And that's the key, right? It's not, everybody can't do everything. That's why you have a mayor, so that they can decide what to do, right? So that's what this is about. So if you go to the proposal slide, please. And You'll see it's two columns where it says first stage and underneath it says second stage, and then on the right it says second stage. That's the typo. Ignore the one under the first column. So the first part of this is about an ask. And this is one way that I envision it is you have a standing agenda item. I wouldn't do it at the end of our meeting in our counselor callouts, because usually we're all tired and want to go home by the time we get to that council report out. But just have a short meeting item where you'd call for any potential agenda items. And you would have an opportunity to make a 60-second, one very short. I want to solve this problem, or I have this objective, some statement, very short, 1 or 2 or 3 sentences of what I'd like to do. And all that does is in public now gets on this list that the mayor's talking about. It's not prioritized, it's just there. And that's step one. In fact, I'd almost think of the list as 2 parts to the list. Things that might end up on the final prioritized list and things that are just ideas that we all spout out and think might be important. So with that list, then I have this new idea to basically put a crosswalk somewhere. Fine. I bring it up. It's on the list. The second stage is the mayor gets to now build an agenda and schedule me in to get a 3 to 5 minute sales pitch. Right? I've got to sell you all on this idea before we spend a minute of staff time. And so we bound it for some time period, just like what if I came in as a Joe Public and wanted to comment, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, something very similar. If you like it, we take a vote and it goes on the real list. We're not authorizing it. We're just moving it to something that's important enough that now it can be the second part of that is can then be prioritized, not necessarily at that time, but we can come back to it annually, semi-annually, quarterly, prioritize it against all the other things to figure out what we would do. I'm going to pause there. Does this make sense, what I'm talking about in terms of just a process? Pitch it, put it on the list, get it scheduled, come back, and then do your sales, your big sales pitch. So just the idea, then the sales pitch. And at that point, if there's reasonable support, then it gets prioritized. We're not voting on it until it goes through staff and comes back as a whatever the final form of that might look like. Questions? All right, then the last page on this, if we were to do this, this would, to make this happen, would make a minor modification of the council rules, because the council rules don't really reflect the new OGEC rules. We're going to have to touch them anyway in a few areas. To basically,
What do you mean? I'm confused by what you just said.
The council, the way to put an agenda item on the list is by motion right now, which is going to be awkward and difficult. Or by talking with the mayor and coordinating, which we can't do that part. The back way that used to be clean, we can't do anymore. So if I want something on a future agenda, I have to come to this meeting and say, I'd like to talk about so-and-so or such and such on the next agenda or on an agenda. Somebody's got to second it, mayor's got to call for a vote, or, I mean, it's going to disrupt the flow of a standard meeting that's already laid out. Because you're going to want to know why I want to talk about it. So I'm trying to take that and put it in a very time capsule bound piece of an agenda. You got an idea? This is your 2 minutes, we're going to bring it up. Or if nobody has anything, we just skip over it. But then when it gets approved, then the mayor puts me on the agenda for 4 weeks from now to come back and give you my 3 to 5 minute pitch on it. And I'll put together 2 or 3 slides or whatever, just like I did here, and we'll talk about it. If I convince you, great, you authorize it and now it goes on the priority list. Not, falls off, it's dead. That's the thought on how to manage this list and make it more vibrant, more living. And we can, I'm not married to any of these things. It's just an idea, starting point, straw man. Thank you.
I've got a couple. The bin list I like, it's like a parking lot, is what we call it. So I'm so used to that, so that's fine. I guess for me, it was more of a learning because I've been on council now, city council for 3 years, and I did not know that I couldn't get anything to go on the agenda without talking to the mayor. So Honestly, I didn't know that was the only way. I thought you go to city and manager and say, hey, put this on the council and let's talk about it. I didn't know I had to go through the mayor's office to get it. In my opinion, as a city council, what if the mayor doesn't like my pitch? But I want to talk with the group of people.
Then you have to do it by motion.
So that's where I would only be opposed against, is if I can't speak to the group about my idea as a city councilman from the people I represent, it's not fair to let the mayor shut that down. So in that sense, I like what you're proposing as an opportunity, but I still think there's a pinch point, there's a funnel. As you said, I have to pitch the mayor. If the mayor doesn't like the idea, then there's no chance for it to get on the agenda. Well,
Can I clarify?
Actually,
So
I'd like to
that's what
clarify
I'm-
since I'm the mayor.
that's what I'm
I just want to clarify, in this proposal, if I bring the 60-second thing there, it goes on the list. That doesn't get voted on. If I bring it up in that window, I'd like to talk about XYZ. It's on the list. The mayor would schedule the win, and in council rules, we would specify a range, 1 to 3 meetings out or something, so it can't be perpetually delayed. So it would come back, and then I would have my time in front of council to give you my 3 to 5 minute sales pitch on it.
and I'm just offering up that I think that any city council person would have the right to bring a subject to all of us.
So the way it works, for not to be mansplained, but anyway, the way it works is that, yeah, any of you all can kind of mention to Tyler in your one-on-one meetings about, oh, I'd really like us to kind of look into this, or, whatever it is. That's how we got Lindy's ideas about the cultural committee or the heritage cultural, whatever it's called. I'm sorry. Not to point, call you out or anything, but it was a great approach of, you met with them and talked about that. You mentioned it to me and I kind of gave you, oh, here's some resources. I know what other people are doing, but any idea that you pitch to them, they're going to kind of, when I'm sitting here going over the agenda, they're going to bring it to me. I'm not necessarily, unless it's something that, I think is a total waste of time and never going to happen, which hasn't happened yet, I'm going to go ahead and say, well, let's kind of talk about it. Let's put it on the agenda. And so, first of all, I don't see myself, negating that. And I guess if I did put it on, negate it for whatever reason, which again, can't imagine doing that, you still have the ability to come and say, I'd like to make a motion that we talk about at the next meeting, this item. And so that's your.
That's what I thought, that's what I
Right,
thought.
that's how it
okay.
works,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So all this other stuff, what I'm feeling is like, I liked the first couple slides. It was kind of what I was trying to do with the parking lot list or bin list. To try to give us this opportunity to kind of take our temperature of how far do we want to push this, because I'm also mindful, as we should all be, about their, load that they're carrying. And so every meeting when we start adding stuff on, maybe some is not that big of a deal, but there are some things that do take quite a bit more work, and we just need to be mindful about what comes off the list or how that gets done. So the thing that I do have a little bit of concern about is that the whole interpretation of the OGEC stuff, and of course, we don't know how the vote is going to go, so that's going to put a whole nother spin on it as to what gets decided here we'll know in the next week or two, hopefully. But I feel like even with that discussion, I don't see that, that's not what the ORS states. What the OJEC folks interpreted is not, gospel, in my opinion. And so, yeah, if somebody wants to call me up in front of OJEC and all that, I'll defend whatever it is. But my point is that I don't feel like, I'm not willing to kind of say, I'm never going to, now Josh, you let me know if I'm wrong here, but I'm not going to say I'm never going to talk to the media. I'm never going to talk to our constituents. I'm not going to talk to anybody here, because that's ridiculous. And that's not what the intent of a serial meeting violation is. And so when we talk about some possible, topic, whatever it is that we want to kind of consider in the future, I don't consider, yes, will we eventually maybe vote on a solution to that problem? Certainly. But that doesn't mean that we can't just I can't listen to somebody describe a problem for me and, suggest some solutions to it. I don't think that's kind of where we were going, especially if it's just a one-on-one thing. I'm not gonna go do a roll call on how does everybody else feel about this? That's gotta be done in an open meeting. But a one-on-one thing about a particular topic that counselor is talk about, I don't think that's a violation of the serial meeting law. But go ahead, please,
Yeah.
please, tell me I'm all wet.
So good news. I'll start with good news. There's a little
Okay.
bit of good news. OGC backpedaled on the talking to the media and constituents, so you're allowed to do that.
Provided you're not in the presence of a quorum.
Right, yeah. The issue with what you described as far as talking amongst yourselves is that
No, just a one-on-one.
just a one-on-one thing, right? Is that the way that OGC is interpreting it now, if you have a one-on-one with one counselor and then two other counselors have a one-on-one, even if you didn't know about it, then you got a quorum that's been involved in a conversation, and all of those people are implicated in a violation of the public meetings law. So when you talk to one other counselor, and you don't know who else is talking to who else, there can be a violation without that intent. That's where I think it's wrong, but that's where their position is now.
Right, but what?
And so it's not just whether you're willing to take a risk for yourself, it's that you're putting other members of the council
At $1,000
potentially at a risk of a violation.
At $1,000 personally per
Right.
incident.
But,
Right.
and yeah, that's why I haven't, reached out and talked to you personally on some stuff that I otherwise would.
Same,
Because,
exactly. I
but
agree.
I don't agree that, let's see. The deal about a serial meeting violation is that you're basically talking about which solution what decision you're gonna make. You've already made up your mind or you're leaning towards this way. Those are the conversations that we shouldn't be having, right?
I agree with you as far as what I think the law should be. And I think probably what the intent of the law was, but that's not what OGC believes
Well,
the law is. And again,
Yeah.
it's
I
a,
mean,
it's,
they went so far, and again, well,
You're welcome to join me in the lawsuit I'm getting ready to file. Because that's what it's gonna take to change their minds.
well,
Because the
geez,
legislature's
no,
not
if
gonna
this
fix it.
bill passes, which I hope to God it
It
does,
only partially fixes this.
well,
But that's not what I brought this forward. I want to put the OGC aside, because with or without the interpretation, I think this is a way to manage agenda items. That's why I'm bringing it out, not specifically because of OGC.
well, I mean, you're saying you're bringing it up specifically because of OGC, but you got to put that aside. So I'm a little bit confused about the intent there. However, what
Fine.
I'm trying to also not make our meetings go, till 11 every time, because we just cannot be effective decision makers when we have so much information to get through.
Can I ask you how much time you think I'm adding to the agendas with this proposal?
If we all six have an issue, 30 minutes. If we go 3 to 5.
If they were scheduled on the same meeting, yes.
Because he was proposing 60 seconds just for the pitch, right? For the initial.
Yeah. The brainstorm, if you will, phase. It would be
Rich had
up
his
to
hand
60
up.
seconds.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
He wanted to
Rich.
get in.
No, I'm just, Don, I mean, I'm trying to just understand, like, can you help me wrap my mind around what's the problem we're trying to fix? Can you give me that in like 60 seconds?
I have a great idea, or you do. How do we get it from great idea to in front of the council in a well-behaved, thought-out way that doesn't waste council time, staff time, and everybody else's time? That's really what it's about. How do you bring them up, filter the things that aren't going to fly so that we don't waste time? And that's what I'm trying to.
Is that not happening now? Are we preventing with the current, before we go tapping all this stuff, are there ideas that are getting hindered now? Because I don't feel that way.
So the way the rules were, so I'm gonna two steps. The way the old council rules were before we did the new OG or the LOC rules. All agenda items with the mayor. I would email the mayor and they would then do it. The new rules say that the mayor and the city manager sit down and come up with the agenda. And it says councilors can bring up an agenda item by motion
That always said that.
It always was there. You could always bring it
Yeah.
up in a meeting by motion.
Mhm.
Or
That has
discussion with
always
the city
been the
manager,
least
so he can
effective way to
discuss it
bring
with
up
the
an
mayor.
agenda or put something on the agenda, because agenda items brought up by motion are added to the agenda in that meeting. They're not planned ahead, so it's a disruptive way to do it.
So here's a practical example. I'm going to use a scenario that you and I have had about a topic you mentioned to me. So I'm not picking on you, but there's just first thing that comes to mind. No solicitation, door-to-door sales ordinance. This was a hot topic 2 summers ago when it seemed to be a real big issue in some of our newer communities. The mayor sent me here's an example ordinance I saw with a different community. I don't know if that has any support from other council members, if that's just a mayor issue. What Councilor Hokinson is proposing with this sort of concept is that it would have been put on an agenda within 1 to 3 meetings to say, hey, is there appetite to discuss this? And if so, what's the priority level? Or does no one else care about this? Let's move on. And then we'd have some tight parameters on making sure that those things don't just sit in the parking lot or the bin list for eternity.
Okay.
So I don't think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Councilor Hokinson is suggesting that within 1 to 3 meetings we're adopting policy.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's let's have a conversation to discuss, is this a priority? Does it have a majority support to be a priority? If so, now staff has that direction that it is a priority. How do we incorporate that into our existing workload?
But I
And is
also.
that a
with
now or is that a 6 months from now?
Yeah, that priority could be way out still.
But I also said, with the, what's the soliciting thing, I said, when we update our code, because I know Kelly's working on it.
Yeah.
Let's, I didn't say, Kelly, drop everything and this needs to be happening right away. So I guess what I was proposing was this bin list to kind of track stuff, take the temperature and see where those things fit in, whether there is support for scheduling it. Some of this stuff, what I don't want us to do is like say, we should be putting up, for example, just stupid sums. We should be putting up a stop sign at this intersection. Well, that's something we already have a process for. And so there's a lot of things that we get, complaints about or whatever, the median needs to be mowed down at the school. I could give you 50 of them that I've just heard in the last, few months. Those things are kind of already handled by our staff, or they're things that we don't need to kind of just look at that one thing. We may need to look at, do we have a consistent traffic stop sign program in our communities? Like what I'm hearing is some intersections are 4-way goes, some are 4-way stops, blah, 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 it's not consistent. Why don't we have one? That's an example of where, let's not look at just this one thing. Let's kind of put it on the bin list, have a discussion, quick, And my intent was to have and I'm gonna end this discussion at 9 because I do want to get to our executive session, was to just have a discussion about the bin list, probably at least once, either once a meeting or once every other meeting or something, have a discussion on the bin list or give an opportunity to add stuff. I would also expect that if you want to add something to the bin list, not only could you make a motion, but when you're making your comments, you could say, I want to add this to the bin list and I want to see that study. I want to see at their next meeting or next time we talk about the bin list, add this to the list, and let's have a little discussion about it. So I think we're almost violent agreement. I guess when we start talking the OJAC and 1 to 3 meetings and stuff like that, it gets a little bit, I get a little bit,
I think
because the implication you're giving is that, well, what if the mayor doesn't support it? Well,
I gave no such indication.
okay, I took it the wrong way, maybe,
And I'm not,
I said that though.
but I mean, the reality
I wasn't meaning
is.
you personally, I meant
no,
the
when we
mayor
put-
taking a position against the council person.
when we
Right, but
put
there's
rules
other
in
ways to get
place,
it.
It's for more than one mayor, it's for more than one council. I mean, you're putting in a process that works no matter who ultimately sits in that chair.
So, since what I'm hearing is that we technically don't have a bin list, and the mayor's asking us, can we formalize a bin list?
And I'm
What
asking,
you're asking is, can we put a process around how we look at that bin list? So,
yes,
in the waste of trying to conserve time, we just not agree to create a parking lot or bin list, whatever you call it, and put a date on when that origination came. And if we start to see a problem with the way things move on that list, we can institute a process to make it move. That's all I'm suggesting.
is that something you could agree to, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I'm yes, I'm fine with whatever. I'm just always hesitant to tinker with rules when it seems to be going fine, but I'm not opposed to anything. It's not something worth arguing about for me.
Councilmember Sarah, what's your thoughts?
I think instituting the bin list is a good step. See where it goes, see where it lands, and utilize it as a council. And work it that way.
I would like to see the bin list, but I would also like to put on the bin list the process.
Put on the bin list.
I'll put on the bin list the process.
Oh,
I'm never.
You're way smarter than me.
well,
I think the process protects the integrity of the bin list and will be an important part of it. I like the idea of a bin list. But if we're not careful, it will be overly utilized or not equitably utilized amongst counselors, and that's what I want to see. Like, for instance, the draft bin list came from you and Tyler.
The what?
The draft list that we saw today came from the two of you. And we have to make sure that we put into place a way so that everybody is represented on that. That's all I'm looking for.
Okay. I'm just gonna correct you. It didn't come, you said it came from me and Kelly?
Tyler. Deems. City manager, you two created the agenda and the staff report? Or is it just you?
No, it wasn't me. I mean, I've been mentioning the solicitation thing in a public meeting. This is what I heard. Here's, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't something that I sat down and made a bin list for them. And I had, like I said, I didn't even know what the Kelly ones were about. So, yeah.
I mean, these,
I-
half of this is post-it notes that are on my desk from when I
Right.
get comments,
Yeah. So
that-
I
you can
think he's
follow up on
listening to
that.
all of us is my point. Is, whatever. I think he's listening to all of you. And so the list will be whatever you all tell him that you'd like to see on it. So I'm trying to open it up that, I thought I'm trying to kind of improve things.
Well, I'd ask that you look at what I said and see where it wouldn't be, or maybe have a counter proposal. Or
Okay.
maybe it's as simple as what you suggested, but on a regular increment, which you said at the end, but wasn't in the wasn't in the staff report. Maybe that's that's an acceptable change to me. I don't know, it's the regularity.
Yeah.
Check-in, council discussion, that is ultimately what I am after.
Will you be sharing what you presented so that I can give it some
Yeah.
thought review out?
And
after the meeting?
yeah, I'd like to kind of have a chance to, let's
And we'll put it on the bin list.
table this. No, we're tabling it. And just for now, and then at the next meeting, let's have a discussion, a little bit more time devoted. Because I am, cognizant of the fact we got to get an executive session.
Can I push back just slightly?
Uh-huh.
There's two items on here that I think could likely have unanimous or near unanimous support to move forward with some internal reworking and bringing back to a work session to actually talk about the changes. And those are our noise ordinance and the solicitation code.
Okay.
Is there an appetite for everyone in here to have a work session on those two items as we discuss other code amendments that we plan to bring forward in the next couple of months?
Especially as we move into the summertime with selection
That
days.
is my goal for the noise ordinance to clean that up before summer. That's when we
Yeah.
get a lot of the noise issues.
Uh-huh.
So I see heads nodding, so I'm gonna move forward with prioritizing those because we've got some other code amendments and these are relatively light.
And I will kind of just, the noise stuff came up with a complaint because the new apartments over there, I guess there's kids out there playing basketball at 1 a.m. and the neighbors have complained to the apartments and the apartment folks said, there's no open or closed hours to this. It's a private basketball court on the apartments. And so, they're kind of basically saying, well, it's not a public park, so we can play as late as we want. So that's where.
And this came up a year or so ago with you, Counselor Sheldon, although I don't remember the specific phone call that I got from you, what the noise issue was, but so it's been on the burner for.
I got blown up by email. Or the email. that
Yeah, I'd have to dig back through
So
to see
that
what
kind
the
of,
catalyst
some of
was.
that
but-
noise, especially before summer. So. All right.
Okay, well, I got what I needed
Yeah, so you
immediately
got
out of that, and
everybody's-
then
yep,
I'm here to
run with
bring it back,
that. Okay.
again, for a larger discussion.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Julie?
Oh my gosh, it's me again.
Um,
Sorry.
Yes, it is.
report from city manager.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So you heard from Nellie earlier tonight, but no funding through the capital construction subcommittee. We have a meeting with Clackamas County Economic Development tomorrow morning, just to kind of talk about their goals and initiatives and how those align with the city of Sandy. So we had the business appreciation event 2 weeks ago. That was a great success. This is sort of, in addition to that meeting, just where we have programs that align, where we have improvements that we can work on together. I will also say that, we are still a year off from budget meetings again, but Tyler Wallace has sort of kicked off this mid-biennium budget review process that we're trying to implement so that we are identifying any sort of funding or expenditure issues early on in the cycle. If there are areas that we need to address, we can bring that back to council to sort of highlight before we jump headfirst into the budget process. We want to identify issues early if we have issues, and find solutions early if there's solutions to be found. So just putting that on your radar that we're starting that work sort of as we near the middle of the existing biennium. And then the last thing on my list this evening is just a respectful request to, let me back up. Last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, we had, an issue with the Johns Road viewpoint camera and some public comment that came in. And during some of the remarks from the council, there were comments made, not, I don't think it was malicious in any way, that's not my intent, but comments about specific staff that worked on that project. And I just want to do a respectful reminder that if you're upset with anything, just let me know you're upset. If it's an employee specific issue, let's do that in private and try to keep, the line staff out of the line of fire, for lack of a better term. I get paid to, take the heat and take those comments and then filter that down to staff to find a solution. So just a reminder that, our staff do watch and they're, doing a darn good job trying to accomplish as many goals as we can and get the work done and get it over the finish line. If we miss the mark somewhere, we're happy to address that. I'm happy to take that feedback and address it. I just want to make sure that we're, giving staff the respect that they, are due with the work that they do. That.
Great, okay. Councilor Hutchinson.
First, I thank you for saying that about the staff, and certainly if I have crossed that line to target an individual staff member, I wholesale apologize. As a council, I think it's so important for us to first of all reinforce Tyler's role with staff, but also to just make sure that, when we're targeting salaries that sit in the middle range of things, people don't always stay here because of the money. And so I think the tone that we set in our interactions with them is going to be a big factor in their job satisfaction and happiness. And sometimes we're working with staff in very difficult situations from budgets or project constraints or other things. And I think every one of us needs to make sure that we are building up that staff and recognizing their role in those things and not cross lines that ultimately cost us staff and long-term cost us money as we try to replace and backfill and catch up on those things. So something I feel strongly about, and my apologies if I've been part of that or when, because I sure I have been. Second of all, we had a great meeting with SandyNet. A couple of weeks ago, same night of the business development, which I also thought was excellent. Mayor, I thought your comments were spot on. And the meeting was so much better than I expected, really. I don't know what I expected, but it which I guess means it exceeded it, but it was excellent. I couldn't stay for the whole thing because we had a SandyNet meeting, but I stayed for the first hour and the turnout was great. Well done. The SandyNet meeting was interesting because Greg started by saying, I really don't have much of an agenda, but what it turned out to be was a nice recap of really some successes that they've had. And in my haste to run out of the house today, I left all my notes home. So rather than butcher those wonderful things that he had going on, I think we should bring him back for either a 10-minute update in a council meeting. Or I don't know that it needs to be a work session, but I'd love to see him come in twice a year and give an update. So we did those IGAs recently for the lottery. We did the IGA or the things, the work down Colorado and Gunderson. Those projects are yielding, and I think it would be nice to have him come back and just give a little rah-rah if that's acceptable to you, Mayor and Tyler.
I love kudos. Right, highlighting the
We
good
don't,
work
we
we're
don't
doing
talk
is
about the good
great.
stuff often enough
So-
sometimes, so that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry, Greg, for leaving all my notes.
The Chamber of Commerce annual meeting was this last week, and it was super well attended. I mean, right in the middle of the day, right in the middle of the workday, and it was very well attended and pretty amazing to hear and see all of the good things that the chamber does for our community and for businesses in particular. The mayor was there, and she and I will let her talk about what she the things that she shared, but I thought it was excellent. Tyler, I want to thank you for making something happen at John's Red. I think my frustration last meeting was really the way that it felt like there was just an overall sense of like, well, like, you know, we could have done better, but we didn't. And I really appreciate the way that it. And it's just not often that there are things that we can do to fix a problem, right? And it felt like it was a big problem for these folks, and that problem, you know, ended up being fixed to the best of everyone's ability, or at least an attempt. And I apologize if I called anybody out at that meeting, because I think the staff is incredible, and my frustration was more just the way it felt in this room, that it was like, well, you know, because I think the staff, the last thing anybody on staff would ever want to do is disappoint or frustrate or make somebody else's life more difficult. So, all right.
The business appreciation event was well attended. The speakers, we had somebody there from Clackamas County, from the state of Oregon, and Mayor Walker. And I think they supplied a lot of information that could be really good tools for people if they had one-on-one time. The man the representative from the state said, "Here's my number, call me directly." There's no question that you would get him on the phone. And so I think that's a really valuable tool for a business owner who is struggling, looking for answers, trying to expand, seeing what the climate is and what's available to them. And so I think that was a really valuable tool to have. And I hope that it was utilized. Because I just don't think you get very many opportunities like that one-on-one. I haven't had anything. I've got Planning Commission at the end of the month. I have Transit Board in 2 weeks. Deer Point Park was very busy when I went by last weekend, and that was really nice to see the play structure, the basketball people in the picnic area. I think that's it.
I would love to get counts. I don't know if we could actually utilize our software well enough, just because the proximity to other homes is so close there, as opposed to like Cedar Park. It's a little, you know, wider of a space. But all I've heard is positive things about Deer Point. I have personal family friends that live in Sandy that have sent me photos of their grandkids playing, and so it's just been a really awesome like neighborhood park to open up.
I had a family friend who was coming through with their 3 toddler to tween age kids, and they were coming from Beaverton, and they were going up towards Welch's Mount Hood, and they're like, we saw the park, we had to pull over, we let them run, it was much more pleasant. Thank everybody who was involved, we survived. So, you know, being visible from the side of the road is, to them, it was a detriment, and it made their day much easier. And they made a point to call me and let me know. So, yeah. Councilor Sean?
I'm gonna be super short tonight. The only thing I'd like to add, and we don't need to have a discussion on it tonight, but I would like to see us add what our proposed, I talked to Tyler about this ahead of the meeting, what our proposed rates are going, increases are going to be, put them on the website. I had somebody reach out and just ask me questions about that, somebody I never met before, but reach out and just said something that I hadn't heard, and that's that they're, you know, looking at retirement and kind of trying to financially plan that and all of that. And so I think the transparency of that would be super huge. It's just something I never really thought about people in that situation. So it was eye-opening, and I do think it'd be important to share those as and even people that are on fixed income so that they can plan on what they're going to do long term. So the sooner we can get that out and published somewhere, because it's not outside of our meeting minutes, would be super valuable.
Yeah, I had mentioned to Counselor Sheldon when he brought this up that, you know, it's transparent if you know where to find it, but it's not readily available, right? We've included it in staff reports and other sort of meeting discussions. On the water side of things, we presented, you know, revised numbers tonight. That's very easy to throw up on our website with a disclaimer that they're subject to change, but here, you know, with the existing project costs we have, here's sort of our tentative outlook. So we can do that relatively quickly. On the wastewater side, need a little bit more time before I feel comfortable posting those. We've got the facility plan amendment coming out very soon. Part of that work is then doing a cost estimate for each of the various possible solutions and related utility rate schedule for each of those, depending on what is selected as the preferred alternative. So just need a little bit more time to update those numbers and have a realistic estimate. I don't want to put out something old and then 3 weeks later have to put out something new. If we could just wait 3 or 4 weeks to get the something new published. But I think it's a great recommendation, and certainly we're not trying to hide anything, right? It's in the staff report, it's public. We just have to maybe put it in the best location. So we can work on that.
That's all I got tonight.
Thank you.
I'll be even shorter. I've been traveling a lot, but I haven't missed any other meetings because there hasn't been any scheduled, so I have nothing to report.
All right. I'm thrilled with the camera mitigation at Johnson Viewpoint. It looks like it's still going to be, you know, capturing the great view. The neat thing about that project is because it did change and morph a little bit into, it was going to be kind of sponsored by a news organization that then puts it on the, you know, live from, you know, Cannon Beach or whatever kind of thing. Now it's going to be on our website, and I was a little bit frustrated because I was like, well, you know, who's going to see it on our website? Not, you know, not a million people on our website. Sorry, Jeff.
That's
So, huh?
They will now.
Yeah. But no, what was helpful was that the way it works, as it was explained to me, is that the news stations can use it on our website. And so I can't imagine that they wouldn't, because it is, you know, when you get the alpenglow like tonight and you had the full moon rising, oh my gosh, coming to the meeting tonight was gorgeous. So I can't imagine that we wouldn't be getting some, you know, the whole purpose for doing that project is marketing Sandy and the beautiful, you know, wonderful views that we have. So I think that that's still going to happen. So I really agree. Everybody had a great time at the business dinner. I wish we'd have had name tags, was the only complaint that I had, because I'm so bad with names, and I see people and I know they know me, or, you know, whatever. And I can't remember their name just because I'm old. Anyway, so name tags would be helpful, but it was great. I met so many folks there, and what was neat is to be able to not only highlight Energize Sandy, but all these other grant opportunities that are out there that really can be capital stacked to kind of get somebody some pretty major help. So that's exciting. The chamber luncheon was also fun to kind of meet folks. They had name tags, so that was helpful. When I was talking to Lacey said that they have a new board now, new members, and the members on the website are the board members on the website are actually who's on the board now. So that's helpful. And they have also intention to kind of have one chamber person at each of our meetings. So that's neat too. And, you know, Councillor Henley's doing a fantastic job at kind of just, you know, facilitating all those kind of improvements. And then what she did say, though, Lacey said that it'd be neat to have the Energize Sandy presentation made at one of their chamber luncheons where they, which one is it? It's not Reach. Is it Reach?
Oh, at the luncheon one?
Yeah.
It's the bite.
The bite.
And
Okay,
it's
yeah.
tentatively scheduled for March 25th. We already
Fantastic.
worked that
There
out
we
with
go.
John.
Okay, great. met with a large existing business that I know quite a bit about, but I'm not gonna say anything about it other than that, but they are hoping to relocate in Sandy in one of our vacant buildings, so thrilled. Again, putting them into touch with the Energized Sandy and all that, so hopefully that's something that can bear fruit in the future, so. Is everyone having their one-on-one wastewater meetings? So I'm hoping that y'all can make time for that because it's critical that we all get on the same page for that, so please make an appointment with those guys so that that can happen.
Mayor, can I ask a follow-up
Uh-huh.
question? So we have 4 of them scheduled. Do, Counselor Mayton and Counselor Hokinson, I know you were on the oversight committee, would you still
No.
like,
Decline.
okay, and Counselor Mayton?
I don't need to be on
Okay, so then that covers everyone. then.
You know, I'm just gonna say, because I was on it too, there's new information out available, so I would encourage you to meet with, talk about the third alternative.
I
So
assume it's coming to council soon.
whatever, do it if you want or not. I'm just, encouraging, I had a lot of questions about this alternative, so it's helpful to kind of just be able to ask AJ one-on-one, it really helped me, but, that's whatever you have time for, so. Yeah, the capital construction meetings, all that kind of went to pot, so we'll, I guess, just try again next year. We're meeting with Clackamas County Economic Development tomorrow and just again, trying to kind of focus and overlay our Energized Sandy with some of their opportunities. So we'll try to kind of just build, what do you call that? Leveraging and building capacity or something, some woo-woo term. And John Lagarza did ask to follow up with us on the banners and entry signs. So yeah. And then again, with the future rate increases, the water, I think we can kind of fairly safely do that. The wastewater, we have a pretty large, I don't even know what the costs are completely, but there seems to be a fairly large window of what the costs are going to be. So trying to kind of guess what alternative we have and what the rates may be is a little premature. So I agree with that kind of strategy. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you very much, everybody. Meeting adjourned.